Chapter 1420. Once upon a time, a man in a long purple suit told a joke to a man who was dressed as a bat. The joke went like this. Once upon a time there were two people in a mental hospital. One night they decided to escape from the mental hospital together. They climbed up to the roof. The scenery of the city stretched out under the moonlight. The road before them led to the world of freedom. However, in front of them, there was a narrow gap between the two buildings. The first person easily jumped over the gap. However, his friend did not dare to jump because he was afraid that he would fall. So, the first person came up with an idea. He said to his friend, "Hey, I have a flashlight. When I turn it on, I will shine it between the two buildings. Then, you can step on the light and come over." However, the second person shook his head and said, "What? Do you take me for a lunatic? You will definitely turn off the flashlight when I am halfway through." Under the hazy moonlight, the Batmobile sped down the street. Inside the Batmobile, Wayne, we still have to call him that for the time being, had a solemn expression on his face. His destination was undoubtedly the carnival that had been abandoned for many years. For someone with the same reasoning ability as the real Bruce Wayne, solving Fong Bujue's riddle was not too difficult. The flashlight that Brother Ju left him was like a key. As for the lock corresponding to this key, as early as this afternoon, Fong Bujue had left it in Arkham Asylum. Water where there is water, huge wheels, wooden boards, weeds, and pink elephants. This was what Fong Bujue said when he was talking to Dr. Quinn. Without a doubt, it had been recorded word for word by the recorder pen. At first glance, it sounded like the ravings of a mental patient. However, Fong Bujue was using the fragments of information related to the visual image to point to a specific location. This location, or rather, this image, he had once seen it in a comic. That comic was one of the most famous and classic stories in the Batman series, Deadly Joke. Quite a lot of the story, including its final climax, took place in the abandoned carnival. Anyone who had a certain level of understanding of Batman comics would have an impression of that location. Needless to say, Wayne, who had the ability to prevent many villains from becoming evil, would definitely know where the carnival was. Of course, there were thousands of Batman stories. Such a seemingly random description was probably too vague. Therefore, Fong Bujue used another item related to Deadly Joke, the flashlight, to show Wayne the way. When they met for the second time on the top floor of the twin building, Fong Bujue and Wayne obviously knew that each other was a traveler from another world, from their conversation. The difference was that Wayne had figured it out in the submarine, while Brother Ju had figured it out much earlier. Therefore, Fong Bujue had prepared the flashlight in advance and said, "I will wait for you there," when he tossed it out. At this point, Brother Ju's plan had been completed. As for Wayne, after he returned to the Batcave, he immediately took the flashlight to the instrument for a comprehensive analysis. At the same time, he retrieved Arkham's video and audio recordings and quickly browsed through them. About 40 minutes later, he heard Brother Ju's words. Combining the clues from the flashlight, it didn't take him too long to figure out where there was. Virum. On the suburban road, the sound of an engine tore through the night sky. The Wayne in this universe was not driving the real, armored Batmobile like the one in Nolan's movie. Instead, he was driving a super Batmobile like Tim Burton's. The streamlined body of the Batmobile had a dark, reflective outer shell and an exaggerated turbine intake. All of these were integrated into one under the uniform Gothic design style. This was the appearance that a classic Batmobile should have. Click. Virum. Just as the Batmobile was about to reach the entrance of the carnival, suddenly, the sound of large equipment being powered up rang out. Dozens of strong light beams lit up in the dark and focused on the center of the road. At this moment, a man in a long purple suit was standing in the middle of the road. Through the display in the car, Wayne could see the man's full appearance without being affected by the light. Jack looked no different from before. The only slight difference was that his hands were now wearing gloves. Wayne didn't know what this meant, and he didn't care about such details. Within 2 seconds, he made a decision. He stepped on the gas pedal to its limit and sped towards the other party. Ha! Facing the Batmobile that was speeding toward him, a smile appeared on Feng Bujue's face. Perfect timing. He opened his arms and yelled, "Come on!" The roar of the engine was approaching, and there was no sign of slowing down. "Come on! Hit me!" Feng Bujue was still standing in the middle of the road, standing in the center of the lights, and he had no intention of retreating. Madman! Seeing Brother Ju's action, Wayne, who was inside the car, could not help but give this comment to himself. Bang! 2 seconds later, the collision happened. Wayne did speculate that Feng Bujue had superpowers, but he didn't think that the man's ability was strong enough to withstand the impact. A Batmobile that weighed more than 2 tons and was traveling at more than 200 kilometers per hour would generate about 3.09 million joules of energy. For a human being like Feng Bujue, who weighed about 50 kilograms, this amount of energy was more than enough to vaporize him. However, when the collision happened, the scene was... The moment the front of the Batmobile was about to hit Brother Ju, he lifted his foot and stopped the entire car. At that moment, with Brother Ju's feet as the center, the ground around him crumbled and formed a large crater. The Batmobile that was stopped started to change under the influence of inertia. The whole vehicle started to crumple like a can that was being squeezed. However, the material of the Batmobile was amazing. Its hardness and toughness were far beyond the limits of human technology. Under such an impact, the body of the Batmobile still didn't completely fall apart. It was only compressed to a certain extent. Clang! Then, the removable hatch at the upper rear of the Batmobile, the 1989 version of the Batmobile, used the hatch that was integrated with the windshield to enter and exit the vehicle, was sent flying. It wasn't sent flying by some kind of ejector, but by a punch from the person in the car. Ho! Feng Bujue looked at the man who slowly stood up from the almost flattened cabin. He was unharmed and said in a lazy tone, "So, he's not dead yet?" That. Wayne stepped on the car as he walked out of the cabin. He lowered his head to look at Brother Ju in front of him and used his voice that sounded like someone with terminal throat cancer to say, "I should be the one saying that." Of course, Feng Bujue wouldn't die. He had made a deal with Dr. Manhattan. With the doctor's ability to control particles, decompose and reassemble, and ignore the law of causality, coupled with the Kongtong seal and the energy stored in the Heaven Spirit's Earth Fiend's box, Brother Ju had recovered his lost equipment and skills, and he had become stronger. Wayne wouldn't die either. Even though he suffered a similar impact as Feng Bujue outside the car, he was well prepared tonight. This level of injury was nothing. The armor you're wearing looks like the Hellbat armor. It appeared in the New 52 era of DC. It was designed by Bruce Wayne and built by other members of the Justice League. Even though Wayne didn't answer Brother Ju's question, Brother Ju continued, "But you and I both know that the Justice League of this universe doesn't have Superman or Green Lantern. In other words, the two most important parts of this armor. The outer shell and the cape, extremely strong and can change shape according to the user's will like Green Lantern's creation. It can even be separated from the body, can't be completed." He paused. Even if you can use a substitute to solve the material problem, it still can't explain how you survived the shocking car accident just now. So there are things you can't think of. Wayne snorted and swung his fist. His punch was so powerful that when Feng Bujue caught it with one hand, the air around them exploded with a loud boom. "Actually, I thought of it. I'm just complaining." Brother Ju looked at the confused Wayne with a smile and replied, "You've gotten your hands on the formula for Miraclo, a special kind of biochemical phosphor. It can give the user super strength, stamina, speed, resistance, night vision, and underwater survival abilities within an hour, right? You." Wayne turned his head and looked at his fist that was firmly held by the other party. He didn't know what to say. Before Wayne came here, he had injected himself with Miraclo, and he was now wearing his own, modified, Hellbat armor. Logically speaking, his punch was likely to kill the other party. However, Feng Bujue seemed to have caught the punch with ease. I guess your expression right now must be very interesting, Feng Bujue said. He reached out his other hand with lightning speed, grabbed the other party's helmet, and tore off half of it with brute force. Why don't you share it with me? After part of the helmet was broken, the other half quickly fell off Wayne's face. Then, a shocked face mixed with anger appeared in front of Brother Jew. Even if you have the same IQ as Bruce Wayne, your wisdom is still only average. Feng Bujue waved his hand to shake off the broken pieces of the helmet that were stuck between his fingers. Like most time travelers, even though you have gained great power, you still have not been able to jump out of the limitations of your own worldview and personality. His tone gradually became indifferent. It was a kind of indifference similar to disappointment. It was like a child who had lost interest in the toy in his hand. At this moment it was chilling to hear. Why did you make the Hellbat armor? Why can't you design it yourself from scratch? You have far more resources and information than the real Wayne, don't you think? Feng Bujue asked. If you use the technology of mass-producing Inatron alloy on a weapon level, whether it's used as an armor coating or a separate armor with it as the core, it will be more useful than this castrated version of the Hellbat armor you're wearing now. Arg! Wayne was completely enraged by Brother Jew's preaching. He roared and activated the secret weapon in his right wrist armor. In an instant, a silent impact burst out and shattered the armor of Wayne's entire right arm. In return, it also caused damage to Feng Bujue, who was holding on to Wayne's right fist. After the explosion, Brother Jew's left hand, the part in front of his elbow, seemed to have evaporated. If he hadn't let go and retreated in time, the damage would have extended all the way to his shoulder. Is this the part of your original work? As Feng Bujue spoke, he didn't even think about it. He took out the Forest of Flowers orb from his backpack and activated its ability to repair his broken arm. This atomic blast, that damages the enemy 1,000 but damages the user 800, is really not clever. What do you know? Wayne shouted. What right do you have to judge me? As he roared, he walked down from the wrecked Batmobile. What I did was the right thing. The righteous thing. Do you know how much effort I put in to create and maintain today's situation? I know. Feng Bujue said. I've already asked Dr. Manhattan to convey your experience here to me telepathically. He paused for half a second and added, and because I know I despise you even more. What did you say? Wayne's expression showed that he found it unbelievable. Your righteousness is fake. It's a double standard. Feng Bujue continued. The real Bruce Wayne will never walk the same path as you, even if he has the same information as you. Are you referring to his don't kill principle? Wayne said. You and I both know how stupid that principle is. Yes, it's stupid. Feng Bujue said. But this stupidity is exactly the dividing line in his heart. It is this line that separates the righteousness he carries out from your lowly, selfish, and hypocritical righteousness nonsense. Wayne shouted angrily again. In a flash, he came to Brother Jew's side and punched again. Feng Bujue didn't even look at his opponent. He stepped back and somersaulted, easily dodging the attack. Before he stood still, he continued, in order to strangle the villains who might become a threat in the future in the cradle, long before you became Batman, you began to act. And the first thing you did was to kill those who bullied the Scarecrow back then. Those guys were a bunch of bastards. Wayne retorted, but his attacks didn't stop. Heh, it sounds like you empathize with them. I can imagine, before you transmigrated, your life wasn't easy either. Feng Bujue's ability to see through people's minds was indeed amazing. His words undoubtedly poked at the fake Wayne's sore spot. You killed and injured so many innocent police officers. What right do you have to criticize me? Wayne retorted, launching another round of attacks. You saved Mr. Freeze's wife because you sympathized with him. You stopped Two-Face from being disfigured because you admired him. You even led Penguin to the righteous path because you believed in him. You believed in him because you believed in him. You even led Penguin to the righteous path because you believed in his value as a good person. But for Killer Croc, who was just as tragic, you did something different. You found Killer Croc when he was a teenager and claimed that you would protect him. You also arranged a suitable hiding place for him. At first, he was very obedient, because Killer Croc was very afraid of the changes in his body. But as time passed, he gradually couldn't stand that kind of life anymore. At that time, you wanted to kill him, because you knew that after he returned to society, even if you could temporarily make him become a good person, this malicious world would one day force out his beast nature. So, one day you sent him a specially made bed. After he laid down on it, you shackled him. Then, you sealed the entrance to his place and left him to fend for himself. As if that way you didn't have to be responsible for his death. What do you know? Do you know how painful it was for me? Wayne roared. I really did treat Wayne, Killer Croc's real name was Wayne Jones, as a friend. Do you think it was easy for me to lock him up there? Yes, you were upset for a while, and then you continued to live your good life. Hearing Wayne's agitated tone, the disdain in Brother Jew's words became even more obvious. After you dealt with Killer Croc, you calculated that your days were almost up, so you went to kill the botanist, Jason Wood, and prevented the birth of Poison Ivy. Of course, according to your standards, even school bullies deserve to die, not to mention people like Wood. Then, you made the Riddler into a retard because there was no reason for him to become evil, and it was very difficult to stop him. His intelligence was a huge threat to you. As for people like Zaz, you could just throw him into a high-security prison. Maybe time would make him turn over a new leaf, right? Heh. Even if he really didn't change and insisted on doing evil after he was released, he wasn't a difficult person to deal with. You just had to catch him one more time, and lock him up for more than 10 years, then it would be over. When Wayne heard this, he didn't argue anymore. Instead, he asked, so what? I have eliminated the hidden dangers that would have brought countless deaths and disasters. Also, I have reduced the sacrifice to the minimum. Compared to the so-called hero who indulges the villains to do evil and never kills anyone, I have saved more people. This is where your problem lies. Feng Bujue continued. No matter how high-sounding you make it sound, in the end, the one who really made the sacrifice is someone else. These words caused Wayne's heart to tremble, and his expression changed subtly. Look, if I didn't remind you, you wouldn't have realized this, right? This is a typical transmigrator's thinking. Feng Bujue said. A person who upholds extreme egoism under double standards sees everything he does as righteous. Your own pain, for example, losing a so-called friend, is infinitely magnified by you, as if it was so great that it moved you to tears. But other people's pain, for example, becoming brain-damaged or dying, is reasonable in your eyes. Your so-called justice is just acting on the premise that you think it's convenient. If it's easy to deal with, you'll deal with it in an orderly way. If it's difficult to deal with someone or something that you think is troublesome, you'll deal with it once and for all by crossing the line. After that, you'll attribute it to reasonable sacrifices that bring more benefits than harm. At the end of the day, your personal gains and losses are greater than justice itself. Your personal will is greater than all other systems. No matter how many reasons you find to persuade me, no matter how many things you think are right, compared to the real Bruce Wayne, you are worthless. Because he is a person who is more ruthless to himself than to others. He is a lunatic, an incurable fool. He is King. Batman. As he spoke, Feng Bujue's tone gradually became louder. At the same time, fake Wayne stopped attacking and realized something belatedly. At this moment, his abilities were being extracted by some strange force bit by bit. He was gradually becoming immortal. Leaving aside your identity as Batman, what about your private life as Bruce Wayne? And Fong Bujue was far from done. Why did you marry Harleen Quinzel, and let her use the name Harleen Quinn after marriage? In the end, it's nothing more than your personal preference. Compared to Catwoman, who is a bitch from the East Side, in the setting of Batman. The first year, Catwoman is a prostitute at the bottom of Gotham. Quinzel, a psychology professor with a clean background and a high education, is naturally more suitable as a wife. Of course, that's if she doesn't become a brain-damaged fan of some lunatic. Brother Jew spread his hands and said with a smile, "Speaking of which, with your help, that lunatic has now become a middle-class comedian who's living a decent life, right? His child seems to be in high school soon?" Brother Jew had already learned this information from Dr. Manhattan. And Mudman is still working as a B-movie star. Ventriloquist is living a comfortable retirement. As for those Robins, Batwoman, and Alfred, they've all stayed away from Bruce Wayne and Batman under your arrangements. They're all living ordinary lives. Fong Bujue pursed his lips and sighed. Sigh. You've basically achieved the few basic pursuits of transmigrators. Absolute safety, a high degree of privacy and freedom, abundant material enjoyment, a woman they like and a few weak or mentally retarded opponents to satisfy their sense of accomplishment as a hero. It's a pretty good life, isn't it? At this point, he changed the topic. Then here's the question. What the F***ck does this have to do with justice? Do you think you're more correct than that so-called hero who indulges the villains to do evil everywhere and never kills anyone? Then you're wrong, you and him, the fake Wayne and the real Batman. There's a fundamental difference between your justice. This difference has nothing to do with result. No matter how many people you save, it doesn't change or explain anything. This difference is related to the most basic starting point for your actions. It's related to the true meaning and spirit of the word, hero. This difference is, the actions you take in the name of justice are ultimately for yourself. As for Bruce Wayne, the real Batman, although his justice isn't completely, at least most of it is for others. When Brother Jew finished speaking, the power in the fake Wayne had mostly dissipated. What do you want? At this moment, the fake Wayne's tone changed. There was fear in his eyes because he could vaguely sense Brother Jew's intention. Ha ha ha. Hearing this, Brother Jew smiled evilly. He didn't answer the question. Instead, he tilted his head and spread his arms. My appearance reminds you of someone, doesn't it? No. No. In his panic, the fake Wayne finally revealed his true nature. He actually turned around and tried to escape. At this moment, he was no longer the Dark Knight of Gotham, but a normal transmigrator. Even if he had a strong physique and extremely high intelligence, even if he had a full set of batsuit equipment and many advanced technologies from the DC universe, he couldn't bear the title of Batman. Thud. After running a few steps, the fake Wayne fell to the ground. The reason was simple. With his power taken away, he didn't even have the ability to move normally in the fake Hellbat armor. Don't worry, taking back your power is just the beginning. Fong Bujue looked at the fake Wayne who was on the verge of breaking down on the ground. He approached him step by step, and with a crazed expression, he continued with a sinister smile. In the next few years, John, Dr. Manhattan's real name, will slowly correct your influence on this world. Your wife, Harley Quinn, will go crazy because of your disappearance. The Scarecrow's repressed dark side will finally awaken. Two-Faced Man will be disfigured in another violent incident. Mr. Freeze's wife will fall ill again, and this time, there will be no cure. On the other hand, the Riddler's illness will heal itself without any medicine. No. 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 The fake Wayne's pupils contracted, and his face turned pale. He fell to the ground and couldn't even move. he could only let out a desperate cry. However, Brother Ju wouldn't stop there. Somewhere in this world, there will be another unfortunate person who will contract an atavistic disease similar to killer crocodile. There will also be another unscrupulous botanist who will develop a poison that mutates poison ivy. Some Kryptonian, Green Lantern Corps, and other alien forces will come to Earth one after another in some form. These are all just a matter of time. There's nothing that can't be fixed and reshaped. Of course, a new Batman is bound to descend here as well. He may come from the future or the past. He may also be a person who died in some incident and came back to life. What's important is that he will be the real Bruce Wayne. Fong Bujua paused for a moment before saying, "In short, there's no need for a fake Wayne here. Everything you've done is meaningless." Just as Brother Ju finished speaking, a new change happened to the fake Wayne on the ground. Ugh! Ugh! In the midst of his wailing, his deathly pale face became truly white as bleach, and his sturdy and well-built body also rapidly thinned. Fong Bujua knew that these changes were caused by the effects of Miraclo and the Hellbat armor. The variant of Miraclo, the Miraculous Serum, the serum used by villains such as Death Knell and Red Arrow, had the side effect of making people irritable, and even having a distorted personality. As for the Hellbat armor, its power source was the user's life. Those who wore it for a long time would have their bodies corroded. Now that Dr. Manhattan had taken back his power, the double side effect caused the fake Wayne's body and spirit to suddenly become weak. It was difficult for him to bear the burden. Ka. Brother Ju did not just stand by and watch. He strode to the fake Wayne and tore off a few pieces of the armor with his bare hands. Then he pulled the fake Wayne out of the armor and threw him to the ground. "Don't be afraid. I won't kill you." Then Fong Bujua rode on the fake Wayne. Now he only needed to use his weight to suppress the fake Wayne. "I only have a simple, small request." He took out a small knife from his pocket and waved it in front of the fake Wayne's terrified face. He said in a deranged tone, "Previously, you asked for my name, but I didn't answer you because I thought you actually know the answer." At that moment, the fake Wayne's mind and body were on the verge of collapse. The last straw that supported his rationality was his instinctive will to live. "Come on. Say my name." Fong Bujua's knife was already on the fake Wayne's face. Joker. The fake Wayne squeezed out the word with shaking hands. Ha ha. Ha ha. Ha ha. When the word was uttered, Fong Bujua raised his head to the sky and started to laugh maniacally. Current quest completed. All main quests have been completed. You have completed the scenario. Automatic teleportation in 180 seconds. The expected system announcement came, but Brother Ju was not done yet. He still had one last step to complete his hidden quest. After laughing for a full minute, Brother Ju lowered his head to look at the fake Wayne. "Don't look so sad. Come, smile as well." Then, the knife in his hand reached into the fake Wayne's mouth. He slowly left 2 cuts on the fake Wayne's lips, or rather, he left a permanent smiley face on the fake Wayne's face. In the first few seconds of this process, fake Wayne was still crying out in pain, but his cries didn't last long, because in that instant, his spirit and mind had finally and completely collapsed. When the knife left the fake Wayne's pale face, he smiled from the bottom of his heart. Chapter 1421. In the blink of an eye, it was almost the end of the year, and the atmosphere on the streets was getting stronger. During the coldest time of the year, it was normal for friends to invite you out for hot pot. However, that night, Fong Bujua, who was invited to a private room in a restaurant by Xiao Tan, felt that something was amiss. Gurgle gurgle. There were 3 people in the private room, but no one spoke. The only sound that could be heard was the boiling of the hot pot soup. "It seems that I have to speak first." In the end, it was Fong Bujua who broke the silence. "Why are you so serious?" Bao Qing turned to look at him and asked, "You didn't bring any money. You don't have to act anymore. Feng Bujue's tone was still serious. I could tell the moment I walked in. This is a trap. Brother Bujue. Xiao Tan's mouth twitched and he continued. This meal is really not expensive, and the room fee is not bad. Besides, I was planning to treat you to this meal anyway. Humph. Hearing that, Feng Bujue scoffed. Xiao Tan, Master Bao. His eyes scanned the two separately. Your various habits, little actions, and subconscious micro-expressions. I know them better than anyone else. He ignored the conversation between the two about the money and continued on his own. Since I walked in, the two of you have spoken less than 10 sentences in total, and you have exchanged glances less than 3 times. Xiao Tan, who rarely crosses his legs, crossed his legs twice and even played with his fingers 3 times. And Master Bao, as someone who places great importance on table etiquette, lowered his head to look at his phone 5 times. Feng Bujue was surprised. He finished all of this in one breath, then looked at the two people who were confused and asked in a low voice, Both of you received orders from Section Chief Gu to arrest me, right? No, Bao Qing answered very decisively. Oh. Feng Bujue raised his eyebrows. Are you here to kill me? Hee. Bao Qing laughed dryly again. I can't kill you. You've also practiced the heavenly book of Dunjia and have special abilities. I can't kill you alone without any equipment. Isn't there still Xiao Tan? Feng Bujue glanced at Xiao Tan. I've heard that your family has been practicing immortal cultivation for generations, right? Xiao Tan did not know how to reply. Actually. So he decided to avoid this ridiculous question and went straight to the point. I invited all of you here today to send out the wedding invitations. As he spoke, he took out a red envelope from his pocket and placed it in front of Brother Ju. As Master Bao arrived earlier than you, and he has something to do later, I have already given him his letter. Silence descended once more. After a brief exchange, Feng Bujue's reasoning was refuted. He did not speak for a long time, and the atmosphere became a little awkward. It was just like the lyrics of the song, What scares people the most is silence. After a while, Brother Ju's serious tone returned to his usual lazy state. Then, why didn't you talk much after I came in? Bao Qing replied calmly, You're a person who arrived half an hour late without informing us. What do you want to hear when you come in? Do you want us to say, It's fine, we just arrived? Then why do you keep looking at your phone? Brother Ju asked again. Didn't Xiao Tan say that I have something to do later? I have something to do later, Bao Qing replied. Something to do with work? Feng Bujue asked. No comment, Bao Qing said without thinking. Oh, then it's work. Brother Ju nodded and then looked at Xiao Tan. Hey, then why do you look so uneasy, as if you have something to hide? Xiao Tan thought for a while. On one hand, it's because you didn't talk to us just now, and the atmosphere was very tense. I thought you had something on your mind, so I didn't say anything. On the other hand, he stood up. Actually, I've been eating too much hot pot for the past 2 days, and my stomach is hurting. Since there's nothing to do now, I'll go to the bathroom first. After saying that, he clutched his stomach and ran out like a wisp of smoke. Damn, you can't not eat when you have a stomachache? Feng Bujue rolled his eyes and shouted at Xiao Tan's back. In the end, it wasn't that he had something to hide, but that he had *T in his stomach. There are 2 kinds of people in this world. Bao Qing looked down at his phone and complained. The first kind is the people who like eating tacos, but once they eat them, they get bloody stool, so they don't eat them anymore. The second kind is the people who eat tacos and get bloody stool, so they keep buying new underwear. Feng Bujue carefully understood the meaning of his words. Although I think it's more appropriate to use masturbation as an example, hey, you're missing the point, right? Bao Qing put down his phone and interrupted Brother Ju. Is this your reaction after seeing the wedding invitation? Our buddies are about to get married, And all you care about is the example I used to complain? You said about to is a bit inaccurate. Feng Bujue said, technically, he's already married. According to the Civil Affairs Bureau's records, he and Xiao Ling have already registered. Bao Qing was dumbfounded. How did you know? After 2 seconds, he seemed to have thought of something. Xiao Tan told you? Hey, but he didn't tell me. No, except for him and Xiao Ling, as well as their families, he didn't tell anyone. Feng Bujue said, I found out myself. He spread his hand. You know me. I like to look through the database of government agencies as a pastime. But since last year, Chief Gu has strictly forbidden me from wandering around the public security, procuratorial, and legal systems. I have no choice. I can only shift my target to the Civil Affairs Bureau and those semi-bureaucratic organizations. By the way, do you want to hear a few toilet jokes about the Chinese Football Association and the Writers Association? I've been inspired recently, and I've written dozens of jokes while I'm taking a dump. I'm thinking of using my sock puppet account to submit them online to earn some extra money. Why don't you be my listener and try the joke? I'll pretend I didn't hear the last part of your sentence. Bao Qing narrowed his eyes. The point is, you already knew that Xiao Tan and Xiao Ling have already registered, but you didn't tell me? Respect his privacy. Wouldn't it be better to let him tell us himself? Feng Bujue replied without batting an eyelid. Right now, you're the epitome of shameless with your words and actions. Do you know that? Bao Qing said. I'm very respectful of her privacy. Feng Bujue shrugged. You see, before he took out the wedding invitation, did I say a word about his marriage? Bao Qing listened and thought for a long time. For the time being, he couldn't think of a way to refute Zhao Yu's words. But then again, you two really gave me a fright just now, Feng Bujue said. I really thought Section Chief Gu sent the two of you to deal with me. As he spoke, he took out his phone and stood up. Anyway, as long as you're fine, I'm going out to make a call. Bao Qing looked back at him. There's only the two of us here. What kind of call are you going out to make? It's nothing. I thought I was ambushed, so when you weren't paying attention, I put my hand in my pocket and blindly sent some messages, informed some people, and arranged some backup plans. Feng Bujue said as he walked. Since everything is fine now, I'd better cancel those plans as soon as possible. Of course, they have to hear my voice first. Okay, that's enough. Bao Qing held her forehead and shook her head, interrupting Brother Ju again. Pretend I didn't ask. In fact, Bao Qing had experienced something similar once before. That was when the three of them were in high school. One day, there was a guy from a powerful family who had a conflict with Feng Bujue. He wanted to challenge Feng Bujue to a one-on-one fight. Brother Ju thought that the guy would set up an ambush, but he didn't expect the guy to come alone. After the fight, he accepted the challenge without any complaint. At that time, Bao Qing and Xiao Tan, who were hiding in the dark as a backup plan, heard Brother Ju say to the guy, "How many people know that you're here today? And you'd better wait for me to make a few calls before you go home." After a while, when Bao Qing understood the meaning of those two sentences, she was also scared. No one knew how many backup plans Feng Bujue had, and no one knew what he would do, and to what extent. But everyone had a consensus: if the end of the world suddenly came one day, and they needed to find someone with emergency response measures, he would be the best choice. Of course, they couldn't rule out the possibility that he would be used as emergency food. Hello? Brother Ju didn't go too far. The soundproofing of the walls of the hotel was relatively good, so he picked up the phone directly in the corridor. "Is this Snow?" "It's me." "False alarm. Your people don't need to come over." "You're so heartless." Snow's slightly joking voice came from the phone. "Am I the kind of friend that you only contact when you need me? Don't say it like we have some kind of physical relationship." Feng Bujue said, "Just say that we're friends who make use of each other, or you can omit the word friend." I don't mind. Ha ha. Snow laughed. Okay, as long as you're happy. He paused. But since we're making use of each other, my men have made a wasted trip tonight, and they've spent a lot of manpower and money, 2 scripts. Fong Bujua knew what Snow was going to say, so he didn't talk nonsense with him, and went straight to the point. 3. Snow immediately began to bargain. 2. Fong Bujua repeated firmly. Then they have to be in sleep mode, Snow said again. Deal. Brother Ju set the terms and was ready to hang up. If there's nothing else, hey. Snow raised his voice and said, right, just now I saw a big piece of news on the game forum, and it's related to you. Oh. Fong Bujua said, what is it? This evening, Red Cherry Studio released an announcement on their official website, announcing that the super popular player Su Huaishang had terminated her contract with the studio half a month ago. When the news came out, the entire gaming circle was in an uproar. According to sources, in the contract of a superstar player of this level, there are very detailed provisions regarding the termination of the contract. The news of the termination of the contract can only be released by the studio after the termination of the contract has been dealt with by both parties. If the player announces the relevant information before the studio, even if the contract period is up, she will still bear the corresponding liability for breach of contract. And the longest termination process is usually 15 working days. It seems that the loss of a star has been a huge blow to Red Cherry, so they delayed the announcement until the last moment before releasing it to the public. Snow read the press release according to the original text. So, what does this have to do with me? Fong Bujua replied calmly. Even though he looked calm on the surface, in reality, when he asked this question, Brother Ju had a bad feeling in his heart. He. Snow had been waiting for this question. He smiled sinisterly and replied, our reporter interviewed the person involved, Su Huaishang, via online chat. When asked which studio she would be joining next, Su Huaishang said that due to the restriction of the non-compete clause, she would not be able to join any other game studio for the next 6 months. The reporter then asked if she would use this opportunity to enter the entertainment industry, and Su Huaishang said that she would not leave the gaming world, and even if she did, she would not enter the entertainment industry. Finally, when the reporter asked her about her plans for the next 6 months, she said that she was considering joining a powerful non-professional players guild. When asked which guild was her top priority, Su Huaishang's answer was, Underworld Frontline. Chapter 1422. Even though before entering the login lobby, Fong Bujua was already mentally prepared, when he opened the inbox, he was still shocked. The last time I received so many emails was when I fought her during the Battle of the Butterfly at S1. Brother Ju looked at the number of emails and sighed helplessly. After so many updates, the social system of Thriller Paradise had naturally become richer and more complete. Correspondingly, some of the rules had changed as well. In the current version of the game, players were free to send and receive emails. However, the supervision of the system had become stricter. The system's ability to identify spam had improved by leaps and bounds compared to the early days of the game. It was almost as good as a real person reviewing emails. In addition to profanities, disgusting comments without profanities, spam composed of all kinds of gibberish, and advertising emails, there were also some more complicated means, such as acrostic poems, indirect abuse combined with examples of current events, specific graphics composed of various symbols, and so on. The system could screen and block all of them. Once a player sent an email like that, they would not be able to send another email for a long time. Other than that, even if they did not send an email that was deemed as harassment by the system within a certain period of time, if a player did not receive a reply, they would not be able to send more than one email to the same target. In conclusion, the current anti-harassment system of the game was still quite effective. But even so, Brother Ju still received more than 10,000 messages. It was not hard to imagine that if not for the system, the number that would have been waiting for him would not have been 5 digits but 7 digits. I am very unhappy. You are a bad person. I hate you. Can you go and stop your heartbeat? Su Huaishang's personal bodyguard. The following sentences that might be censored are omitted. 100 million words. You are on your own. Feng Bujue quickly browsed through the emails, and most of the content made him speechless. Due to the existence of the system review, in order for the mail to be delivered, these people had to rack their brains to find words that would not be censored. The result was, in the end, the things that were sent over were extremely harmonious. It did not make people angry at all. In fact, it even felt a little cute. Ding. Brother Ju looked at it for 2 minutes before a notification came. It meant that he had a friend who wanted to talk to him. He glanced at the window, and sure enough, it was Su Huaishang. After thinking for 2 seconds, Feng Bujue clicked on audio only. Video could be used. But Brother Ju usually didn't do it because he didn't think it was necessary. After the connection was established, he spoke first. Hello. Hello. Su Huaishang replied. You're really good at ambushing us today, Brother Ju said in a teasing tone right after the greeting. Acting first and reporting later, right? Ha! Su Huaishang naturally knew what her Brother Ju was talking about. She was amused. You must be dealing with the threatening emails now, right? Yeah, these threatening emails are between kindergarten classes and kindergarten classes. They look like they are acting coquettishly. It's a nightmare, Feng Bujue complained. Just bear with it for a few days. It will lessen after a while. Su Huaishang said, unlike me. I'm harassed like this every day. Other than the threatening emails, there are love confessions, flirtations, and the most ridiculous thing is that there are people who confess to me about the bad things they've done. You are you, and I am me. Feng Bujue said, why don't you tell me that you don't have to wait in line when you go out? After he said that, Su Huaishang was obviously stunned for 2 seconds before she said, Hey, how do you know that I don't have to wait in line when I go out? Don't worry, I'm not a stalker. Feng Bujue knew that Su Huaishang had probably misunderstood him. I'm just speculating. The next second, Su Huaishang raised her voice. When I go to the cafe for a cup of coffee, everyone from the waitress to the manager says that I'm a lucky customer and I don't have to pay. That's not my problem, is it? When I go to the theme park, there are always people in front of the line who want to invite me to join them. That's not my problem either, is it? I'm also troubled by that. That's none of my business. Feng Bujue said, go talk to your parents. Put on a mask and sunglasses before you go out. The two of them yelled at each other for a few seconds and then went silent for a few seconds. Then, it was Su Huaishang who pulled the topic back. Okay, let's get down to business. Can I join your club? No. Feng Bujue answered without thinking. Why not? Su Huaishang asked. Our club is very low-key. Feng Bujue said. Hearing Su Huaishang's tone, she seemed to want to laugh, but she forced herself to hold it in. You know that you're more famous than all the players in many gaming studios combined, right? Furthermore, Underworld Frontline is the champion of S2. How can you be low-key? So, you want to increase our club's popularity by at least 2 times? Feng Bujue asked. I don't really care about that. Su Huaishang said. I only know that your club is very strong and I think the atmosphere is very good. What else? Feng Bujue continued. Su Huaishang was taken aback. What else? There's one more important reason that you haven't told me, right? Feng Bujue said. Su Huaishang hesitated. After thinking about it, she felt like she couldn't hide this from Feng Bujue, so she said, Okay, I think there's a high chance that I can win S3 if I join your club. That's right. Feng Bujue said proudly. If you want to ride my coattails, just say it. If you're honest from the start, maybe I'll consider it. So, what's your decision now? Su Huaishang seemed to be getting impatient, so she followed up with another question. Still no. Feng Bujue's tone was rising. Why? Su Huaishang said word by word, still no. Because our club is not only low-key, it's also very democratic. Feng Bujue replied, I don't have the right to decide whether or not you can join us. I have to ask the other members before I can give you an answer. As long as they all agree, then you'll agree? Su Huaishang asked. Yes. Feng Bujue said, but everyone in our club has to agree. There can't be a single veto. Your club only has 5 members, right? Su Huaishang asked. Yes, that's why every vote is important. Brother Ju said matter-of-factly, think of our club as the United Nations Security Council. Every member has a veto. Even though I've never heard of our club having such a rule, but since you've said so, I hope you'll follow it in the future. At this time, another person's voice came from the communication channel. This person's tone was 90% similar to Brother Ju's, but the voice was much better than Brother Ju's. Brother Ju's first reaction was that he had misheard. What's going on? Ruoyu? Brother Ju, actually the 4 of us have been here since the beginning. Then, Xiao Tan's voice came from the other side. Where are you? Feng Bujue asked as he thought about it. In Sister Shang's conference room. Xiao Tan replied. You found yourself another big sister in such a short time? Feng Bujue almost instinctively complained. By the way, you're home fast, aren't you? Didn't you take a dump when you got home after eating hot pot? You came online earlier than I did. His voice was getting louder and louder because he realized that his conversation with Su Huaishang was under the scrutiny of his 4 underworld frontline teammates. Even though he didn't say anything out of line, it didn't feel good to be spied on without knowing it. Then, you should know the general situation now. A few seconds later, Su Huaishang's voice came back. If you don't have a problem with your vote, come to my conference room and add me leader. When Feng Bujue was invited into Su Huaishang's conference room, Ruoyu, Xiaoling, Xiao Tan and Miss and had been waiting for him for a long time. To Brother Ju's surprise, Goddess Su had arranged her meeting room to be something like a training room. There was basically no entertainment. Other than the area around the meeting table, there was not even a place for one to sit comfortably in the room. So this is a conference room for professional players. It does have a lot to learn from. After Feng Bujue entered, he walked to the side of the room and sat down while looking around. Not all professional players would arrange things like this. Su Huaishang said, at least the studio I worked for before didn't have any requirements for players to do activities in the resting area. She paused and then continued, this is just my personal preference. Because sometimes I have to wait in the conference room for a meeting, I feel like I have nothing better to do, so I might as well use that time to train. Obviously, Su Huaishang, who was called a genius by Meng Jingchan, was not only very talented in gaming, she was also a very hard-working player. In fact, she was probably the most hard-working professional player in the game right now. From the earliest days of esports with keyboards and mice to the future where virtual reality games were becoming more and more popular, the discrimination against female players in the gaming circle had never stopped. With the passing of time, people's views had also changed. Even today, there were still many people who held the stereotype that female players are definitely weaker than male players. Whenever a female player was mentioned, their focus would first be on the player's appearance. Then, there would be some gossip that was either exaggerated or distorted. Admittedly, since the creation of video games, the overall strength of male players had always been overwhelmingly strong. This was even more so after the gaming industry became more professional. For a very long time, it was extremely rare for male players to lose to female players in a professional tournament. Occasionally, when a famous male player lost to a female player, he would be ridiculed until he retired from the game. Even after he retired, he would still be ridiculed. However, when it came to Feng Bujue and the others who relied on neural connection technology to play the game, The number of female players and the overall strength of the female players had increased significantly. This changed the situation a little bit. Su Huaishang, on the other hand, could be said to be a flag-bearer of this era. She was the first female professional player to win multiple individual championships in international competitions regardless of gender. At least in the middle of the 21st century, this was an unprecedented achievement. Perhaps from an outsider's perspective, a girl like Su Huaishang only needed to rely on her face to live an easy life. But in reality, it was because of her appearance that her path to becoming a professional gamer was even more difficult. Without a doubt, even if Su Huaishang didn't want to, she would inevitably be treated differently in various situations. Therefore, when she first started playing the game, other than being harassed, she was also questioned by all kinds of people. More than once, she had been treated unfairly because she had refused some unreasonable requests. The glory that she earned through her hard work was also attributed by some people to relying on her appearance and connections. And there were many people who were willing to pay the price for these rumors. However, she still managed to survive. In the end, the game itself wouldn't lie. She used 10 times, or even 10 times more effort than others to finally gain the recognition of the players on the game's level. Finally, people moved their eyes away from her appearance and recognized that she was a professional player and one of the top players in the game. Only Su Huaishang could understand the hardships that she had endured along the way. Now, as a professional player, she didn't need to prove her strength anymore. But she still had one regret, and that was that she had yet to win the team championship honor. Therefore, this time, she joined the underworld frontline. It was the same as betting on Feng Bujue and the others, of course. Feng Bujue didn't know about her experiences and thoughts. At the end of the day, Brother Ju didn't know Su Huaishang. But, as a woman, Ruo Yu's intuition in this regard was much more sensitive than Brother Ju's. When she saw the news about Su Huaishang's contract being terminated, she already had a vague idea of something. After that, after a series of probing, even though Su Huaishang was still tight-lipped, Ruo Yu understood that the trigger for the termination of Su Huaishang and Red Cherry's contract was the decision she made in the S2 match between Red Cherry and Underworld Frontline. After knowing this, Ruo Yu's heart was filled with an indescribable emotion. Speaking of which, the characters in your account and the resources, will they all belong to you after the termination? Feng Bujue didn't comment too much on Su Huaishang's personal preferences. He quickly asked a question that he was more interested in. Yes, they will all belong to me, Su Huaishang replied. But, before the termination, the studio had already used various methods to reclaim the resources that could be reclaimed. To a large extent, it has hindered my ability to play the game normally. So, since the level cap was released, I haven't been able to level up much. Oh. Before she finished, Brother Ju had already figured out the few suspicious points that he couldn't figure out at Linlu Town. He mumbled to himself, no wonder, Anyway. Then, Feng Bujue scanned his companions. Since no one has any objections, I'll invite Goddess Su to join my group. How about you change the way you address me first? Su Huaishang asked. Hee. When Feng Bujue heard this, a wicked smile appeared on his face. If you dare to say that word that starts with 4. Now, Ruo Yu had reached the level where she could see through Brother Ju's trash talk before it even left his lip. Tomorrow morning, when we greet each other, there might be an uncontrollable physical altercation or something like that. Feng Bujue, who was exposed, swallowed the trash talk that was about to come out of his mouth. Then he turned to Su Huaishang and said, Then why don't you tell me what to call you? You're older than me. Just call me Xiaoshang. Su Huaishang replied. Then here's the problem. Feng Bujue said seriously, in front of your die-hard fans, like your personal guards, should I come up with a different name? No need. No matter what you call them, Their attitude towards you will still be death sentence or death sentence. Su Huaishang narrowed her eyes and complained. Ha ha! Brother Ju laughed. Okay then. He called out the game menu and invited Su Huaishang to join his group. Welcome to the big family of Underworld Frontline. He paused for half a second before adding, of course, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to lead you to the championship of S3. No. Before Su Huaishang could reply, Rua Yu said in a firm tone, you'll definitely get it. She looked at Su Huaishang. It's not that we'll help you get it, it's that we'll all get it together, the championship of S3. Chapter 1423. After officially joining Underworld Frontline, Su Huaishang immediately updated her social media account. The next day, with the guidance of Feng Bujue, the great writer, she wrote a long article. She reflected on her journey as a professional gamer over the years, reviewed her achievements during her time as Red Sakura, and talked about her plans for the next half a year. The main point was that the team she was in now had a good atmosphere. She hoped that her fans would continue to support her and believe that she would be able to achieve good results even in a non-commercial environment. After this article was published, Goddess Su gained quite a number of fans. On the other hand, the other 5 members of Underworld Frontline, other than Brother Ju, started to receive various emails from strangers. However, the emails were not hostile. Most of them wanted to know about their guild. For example, how many members are there in your guild? Is Feng Bujue the only one in the guild? Is Su Huaishang having fun here? Is Underworld Frontline still recruiting? And many of them were purely sending messages to express their support for their idols. In conclusion, through that article, Brother Ju had successfully created a wave of public opinion. According to Miss N, as a writer, you have finally used your professional ability to do something good. On the 27th of January, before the news of Su Huaishang leaving the studio had died down, the Dream Company, as if unwilling to be left out, started to do something. That morning, 2 major announcements appeared on the official website of the Dream Company. The first one was shocking. The new year is coming. To ensure that all the players and the employees of the company have a happy new year, the Dream Company will have a 1-week holiday from midnight on New Year's Eve to 11:59 p.m. on the 6th of the new year. During the holiday, all the businesses under the company, including but not limited to Thriller Paradise, Crazy Thoughts, and the online marketplace, will be suspended. This was the umpteenth time that the Dream Company had done something like this. While other gaming companies and e-commerce companies were doing crazy promotions during the holidays, they actually wanted to take a break for an entire week. It was obvious that they didn't care about national holidays at all. It could be said that when they read this message, many jokers had already started to add sentences like, "I'm going to die if I don't get to play Thriller Paradise soon. How are the players going to celebrate the new year after you shut down the server? And God only needs 6 days to create the world, and you're going to give him 7 days off?" Naturally, these kinds of sentences came out of their mouth. However, they also knew that it was useless to say such things. Thriller Paradise had been open for almost a year already. How could the players not know about the Dream Company? Have you ever been to a gas station? Have you ever worked for a government agency? You've been through a lot, so this is nothing. At least when you're dealing with the Dream Company, you can get value for money most of the time. It's better than spending money and being a coward. No matter what, since the announcement had been made, the 7-day suspension was a done deal. The players only needed to complain, but if they wanted to cause trouble, they would not be able to change the result. In fact, they might even bring trouble to themselves. Zombie Blade, which had already closed down, was the best example. Then, there was the second announcement. The preliminary rules for Thriller Paradise's tournament for the best S3 will be announced after the new year. This tournament will be a mixed solo and team competition. For more details, please pay attention to the official website. Even though this was an announcement that did not have much actual information and was more like a trailer for a movie, the reaction was much bigger than the previous one. Just the words, mixed individual and team competition system, were enough to make countless gaming studios unable to celebrate the new year in peace. 28th January, 2 a.m., inside Wang Tongji's conference room. Since Brother Bujue and Xiao Tan both came online late, they could only watch the movie while waiting for their teammates to come out from the scenario. You seem to be very busy recently. Other than the day of the hot pot, I haven't seen you in real life for days. Feng Bujue was still lying on the sofa in his favorite slumped position as he chatted with Xiao Tan beside him. I don't want to talk about it. Xiao Tan looked exhausted. He dragged his voice and said, "This year's New Year's Eve falls on February 14th, 2056. It's Valentine's Day and New Year's Eve. Coincidentally, Xiao Ling and I are planning to get married this year, so we're just in time." After some discussion, the elders from both sides decided to have our wedding and New Year's Eve dinner together. He paused. I don't think I'll go into the significance of marriage and New Year's Eve for Chinese people. Putting these two things together is killing me. I quit my job about a month ago, and I've been accompanying Xiao Ling to take care of various things. But I still feel overwhelmed. Upon hearing this, Feng Bujue nodded. Think on the bright side. After the wedding, the two of you who have so much money that you can't spend it all will be able to eat, drink, and play all day long. About that. Upon hearing this, Xiao Tan looked sorrowful again. Recently, my psionic power has improved quite quickly. That father-in-law of mine, which is Section Chief Gu, seems to be preparing for me to go to Jiuku to cultivate immortality. Ha! Feng Bujue laughed dryly. Then you've wasted your 5 years in medical university. That's what I said to him back then. Xiao Tan narrowed his eyes. He replied to me, "It's useless to study medicine. Your grandfather used to be a rock star in the field of surgery, but later on, in order to protect world peace, didn't I still go around stabbing people with a knife to save lives? Heh. Let's not talk about how old Gu called you a grandson. I believe that he stabbed people, but whether his motive was for world peace or not, I think it's debatable." Feng Bujue said with a subtle expression. Right. Xiao Tan didn't continue the topic with Brother Ju. Instead, he said, the wedding venue is in Italy. You already know that, right? Feng Bujue immediately sat up. Of course I don't know. He paused for half a second. Why did you say it in such a normal tone? The address printed on the wedding invitation is clearly in the suburbs of S City, right? It's in the suburbs. But you're not going there to attend the wedding. You're going there to take a plane. Xiao Tan continued. Flying straight to Italy. Hey, is there an airport near that address? Feng Bujue asked. Does the plane belong to your family? Brother Ju was just being sarcastic, but he didn't expect, the plane belongs to our family, Xiao Tan replied. F***ck. Needless to say, the airport belongs to Xiao Ling's family? Feng Bujue said in a desperate tone. No. Xiao Tan replied, but it should be their family managing it. I can't say too much. Anyway, there are runways and facilities for private and military aircraft taking off and landing there. You're a bunch of scum who abuse your position for personal gain, Feng Bujue said with a righteous look. You're really capable of doing it. Also, you two are from China. It's one thing for you to have a wedding abroad, but what's with the two of you going to Europe for New Year's Eve dinner? New Year's Eve, Xiao Tan said in a sincere and pained tone. In China, we can't get a table. He paused for 2 seconds and added, and this isn't something that can be solved with money, Feng Bujue couldn't refute. Okay. He thought about it again. Then, after we fly to Italy, yes, I didn't type wrong, which city's airport will we land in? I have to say in advance that no matter which country we go to, I can't get a passport and a visa. There's a story behind this, but it's too long, so I won't go into it for now. After we land, if I'm immediately sent back to China, you have to be mentally prepared. Don't worry, Chief Gu already knows about your situation. He has already prepared a set of flawless documents for you just in case. Also, we won't land at a civilian airport, Xiao Tan said. So, the two of you have power in Axis Hades as well? Brother Zhu narrowed his eyes. Don't ask me about this, Xiao Tan said. Strictly speaking, I'm now a staff member of 9 sections, and I'm still in the probation period. Logically speaking, I shouldn't be telling you so much. Sigh. Feng Bujua sighed. Another good young man who lost his position because of women and work. Before he finished, the door of the conference room opened, and Ruo Yu and An Yueqin walked in. Less than 2 seconds after the two entered the room, Feng Bujue jumped up from the sofa. Thank you for your hard work. Please sit down. I've already warmed the sofa for you. You washed my clothes with yours again, didn't you? You're going to delay the draft again this month, aren't you? The two sat down calmly and spoke in an emotionless tone. I'll be careful next time. I'll submit the draft in a few days. Feng Bujue put his hands together and lowered his head. Sigh. Okay. I'll wait for you for a few days. Soon, he got the response that he was looking for. Feng Bujue, who sighed in relief, changed his seat and sat on the other side of Xiao Tan. Wang Tongji glanced at Feng Bujue with a gaze that said, "Can you be any more shameless?" He held it in for a long time before saying, "Brother Zhu, shut up." Feng Bujue had no intention of listening to his comment. A few minutes later, Su Huaishang and Xiao Ling finished preparing the scripts and came to the conference room. The 6 members of Underworld Frontline were all present. After Su Huaishang joined them, they had queued up in many scenarios as a team of 6. But tonight, according to the plan, they were going to challenge Nightmare Mode with 6 players. Chapter 1424. Feng Bujue, Level 57, Rain Like Rain, Level 54 Wang Tongji, Level 55 Laughing Soul, Level 54 Flower on the Rock, Level 54 Su Huaishang, Level 55. Please select the game mode that your team wishes to join. You have selected Team Survival Mode, Nightmare. Please confirm. After everyone was ready, Feng Bujue was still the team leader, and he led the team into the scenario. Your team is joining Team Survival Mode, Nightmare. The maximum number of members in the team is 6. Your team has joined the queue. Coordinating neural connections. Generating scenario. Downloading. Please wait a moment. When the system announcement appeared, everyone in the login lobby felt that familiar sense of weightlessness, and they were submerged in darkness. The teleportation had begun. Welcome to Thriller Paradise. The dry and hoarse male voice said that as the introductory greeting came. Download complete. You are currently in Team Survival Mode, Nightmare. A scenario introduction is provided in this mode, and there is a chance of triggering hidden side missions and special world building. Scenario cleared reward. Optional puzzle card X4. The scenario introduction will be played soon. The game will start immediately after that. When the members of Underworld Frontline saw the reward for clearing the dungeon, they were shocked. After all, even a random puzzle card X4 was already a very rare reward. But this time, the reward for clearing the dungeon was actually 4 random puzzle cards. In the current patch where there was a puzzle card exchange, every player would have 3 to 5 unusable cards in their inventory. If they were given 4 selectable cards, they would only need to combine them with their original cards and exchange them at the exchange, and they would be able to come up with a large number of difficult puzzle card combinations. In other words, it was the same as giving them a powerful legendary tier equipment. Even though I had this feeling when I joined as a team of 6. Feng Bujue thought to himself. But from the content of the reward, perhaps this scenario will be more difficult than I expected, abnormality detected. Reloading the scenario introduction. The next second, an abnormality that had never happened before confirmed Brother Jew's prediction. An unknown error occurred in the scenario. Disconnecting, encountered unknown data flow, initiating emergency process. The last part of the system voice seemed to have been cut off by some kind of force, and the players were not disconnected. The chaos scorched earth, the blood fiend realm. Dark clouds covered the sky and ashes covered the ground. At this moment, in this land of slaughter full of demons and monsters, a teleportation array surrounded by dozens of magic reliefs was emitting a brilliance that was incompatible with the surrounding environment. Buzz, 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 with a buzzing sound, 3 figures appeared in the formation. They were 3 players, Feng Bujue, Wang Tanji, and Su Huaishang. We finally succeeded for once. When Brother Ju and the others appeared, a youth who looked to be about 15 or 16 years old with a mature face stood by the side of the formation and muttered, "Old Wang?" Feng Bujue followed the voice and immediately recognized that it was Dianli King. "Long time no see, Feng Bujue." Dianli King was too lazy to complain about the way Brother Ju addressed him, so he pretended not to hear it and greeted him directly. "Wow, you've grown quite a bit since we last met." When Feng Bujue last met Dianli King, the latter was still a child. "By the way, is that part of your new look?" Brother Ju turned his gaze to a strange bird that was standing on Dianli King's shoulder. It was an owl-like creature with a brown back and a white stomach. Its body was larger than a normal owl, and its head was that of a cat. It really was an owl with a cat's head. "It's me." To Brother Ju's surprise, 1 second later, the owl opened its mouth to answer him. "Beat." Feng Bujue blurted out an exclamation that was blocked, and then he recognized the strange bird. "Brother Ju?" "Yes, it's me." The Count of Script answered. "Many things have happened recently. In any case, I can only exist in this form, and in terms of power, I'm much weaker than before. Even though I don't want to interrupt your reunion," Su Huaishang suddenly interjected, "but I have to warn you, something is coming." As expected of a super expert, she was very sensitive to danger and hostility. Just as she finished, a monster with bat wings on its back leaped out from the air about 20 meters away from them, and it swung its claws at them. The monster looked like a gargoyle, but its body was purple in color and it was extremely thin. It should have the ability to fly silently and invisibly because before Su Huaishang spoke, its body was still in stealth mode. The sound of its flight was also muffled by the wind, making it extremely difficult to detect. Whoosh! Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Just as the monster was about to pounce, the sound of an arrow piercing through the air whistled through the air. Immediately after, a poof sound was heard. Xiao Tan used Touch of Altair to launch this attack, and it hit the monster's head precisely between its brows. No matter how strong the monster was, there was no saving it now that its brain had been pierced by the arrow. A few seconds later, it fell to the ground due to inertia. Its twitching body and flowing brain matter announced its death. There's not even a safe time to get used to the environment after entering the dungeon. Xiao Tan had gotten used to the various situations in the game, and he was used to dealing with this kind of sudden danger calmly. Dianxia King heard that and laughed drily. "What safe time is there to talk about when we're in the middle of chaos? It's not even safe to breathe here." As he spoke, the Count of Script silently flew down from his shoulder and landed next to the monster that had just died. He lowered his head to lick at the brain matter on the ground. As he did so, he said, "These teleportation reliefs are indeed too conspicuous. Let's go somewhere else to talk. I am not going to ask why you summoned me here through the teleportation circle." Feng Bujue did not comment on the man's brain-eating behavior. He knew that there had to be a reason behind the Count of Script's action, so he cut to the chase. "I just want to ask, why are you doing something like this in the middle of chaos? Can't you just set up a formation at the detective club?" Good question. Dianxia King looked at his brother Ju coldly and revealed a shocking news. Let me tell you something that is not that big of a deal at this stage. The detective club has been destroyed. Chapter 1425. The kingdom of the dead spirits was once a silver-white land built on bone sand. But now it was completely unrecognizable. The raging demonic aura had dyed every grain of white sand in this land black, and the sky had become muddy and gloomy. This place seemed to have become the border of the chaotic scorched earth, waiting to be assimilated and swallowed. Buzz. On the scorched earth, a group of runes in a magic formation was buzzing. Beside the formation stood a strange man in a black robe and a gorgeous cloak. His skin was pure white, and each of his eyes had 2 pupils. His name was Taliom, one of the 2 popes of the Phantom Demon Church. There were originally 3, but after Soul Snatcher's death, only Taliom and Sam Montier were left. Screech. After the buzzing lasted for a while, accompanied by the sound of energy surging, 3 figures appeared in the formation. Phew! We finally succeeded. When he saw the 3 people, Taliom let out a long sigh of relief. His body unconsciously swayed a few times as if he was about to lose all his strength. Taliom. After the players gained the ability to move, Xiao Ling immediately recognized this guy and called out his name. Ah! Taliom also looked up at Ruoyu, Xiao Ling, and Hua Jian. Long time no see. The 3 knights of the dead spirit. Where is this? Ruoyu observed the situation around her and then asked, Did you summon us? You don't recognize it. Taliom laughed bitterly. Heh. This is the kingdom of the dead spirits that you swore allegiance to. What? Hua Jian was shocked. This is... She did not finish her sentence. Instead, she looked around and asked directly, What happened during this period of time? It's a long story. Taliom said. We shouldn't stay here for long. Please follow me to see the Spirit King first. When we get to her, she will explain it to you. Wait. At this time, Xiao Ling vigilantly asked, When did your illusory demon church become the Spirit King's subordinates? Hee. Taliomo laughed sinisterly. Not a subordinate, but an ally. He paused and looked at the distant sky. You don't know. After that incident, there are almost no forces in the main universe that fight alone. Even if it's just surviving, it requires multiple alliances. At this point, he retracted his gaze and sighed softly. Anyway, all of you just have to come with me. The activation of the formation must have attracted their attention. It won't be long before redundant soldiers come to patrol. It'll be troublesome if we're held back by those fellows. The players only understood part of Taliom's words, and there were many questions that followed. To solve these questions, they could only take one step at a time. Thus, Ruoyu and the other 2 followed Taliom. The 4 of them entered a magic dimensional passage through a hidden entrance and gradually walked into the underground of the undead kingdom. Back to Feng Bujue and the others. These people who were on the real chaos-scorched earth also followed Ol Wang and Brother Zun to a place that looked like an underground cavern. All the walls here were made of rocks that emitted high temperatures. Other than the lack of smoke, it felt like they had entered a sauna. Brother Ju and Xiao Tan had not gone far, but they were already sweating profusely. They were so hot that they almost stuck out their tongues. However, Su Huaishang did not seem to be hot at all. She was calm and composed, and there was not even a drop of sweat on her face. She must have some method to avoid the heat. I say, Xiao Shang, why are you? At this point, Feng Bujue did not finish his question. Instead, he stopped halfway through his sentence. Why what? Su Huaishang asked. You know it's... Feng Bujue said as he held the wall with one hand and made a particularly seductive gesture. Then he started a magic mic-style performance. He pulled at his collar and stuck out his tongue. He slowly used his hand to wipe off the sweat on his skin. Ha 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 ha! Su Huaishang burst out laughing. Xiao Tan's lips twitched. He narrowed his eyes and mocked, "You're not going to write anymore because you're going to use this skill to make a living. Unless academic knee dancing becomes popular in the future, I'm afraid I won't be able to make a living from this," Feng Bujua said as he stopped his very amateur striptease. He turned to Su Huaishang and said, "But do you understand what I'm trying to say?" "Ha!" Su Huaishang slowly suppressed her laughter and said, "I think I understand." She paused and then explained, "Actually, this is not that complicated. It's just one of the more advanced ways to use energy. It's similar to the technology one used to deal with the audio detection of sashimi. Of course, temperature isolation is much easier and less labor-intensive than resonance." Regarding the incident at Lin Lu Town, they had already discussed it before, so now that she explained it to them, Brother Ju and Xiao Tan basically understood. "Oh, but then again, no matter how hot I am, I won't," Su Huaishang said as she leaned against the wall with one hand. However, she did not do what Brother Ju did. Instead, she stuck out her tongue and made a funny face. "TSK, I'm just trying to liven up the atmosphere." Feng Bujua shrugged. "Next time you want to do something similar to liven up the atmosphere, can you at least give me a heads up first?" To their surprise, Dianli Wang, who walked in front of them, said, "Give me a few seconds to gouge my own eyes out. You're so annoying. Are you in your rebellious phase?" Brother Ju did not back down and retorted, "Are you feeling lonely and confused? Are you afraid that some parts of your body have started to grow hair?" Ol Wang did not argue with Brother Ju because he knew he was no match for him. Therefore, he continued to walk silently and gave Brother Ju the middle finger. Even though players were not allowed to do this kind of action, NPCs did not have such restrictions. In a way, this was a kind of preferential treatment. The group walked for a few more minutes and they reached a deeper level of the underground cavern. After passing through several winding and dangerous paths where they could see magma, they finally arrived at a large space with an extremely high ceiling. The players' eyes opened up. "It's us, Feng Bujua, and the rest are here." After entering the space, Dianli Wang shouted loudly. His words echoed in this huge, empty cave, and then, a heavy sound of rocks rubbing against each other rang out. Along with the voice, space began to distort. A few seconds later, in an empty space that was originally empty, a large area that looked like an optical camouflage opened. It was not until 1/3 of the invisible stone door was pushed open that Xiao Tan and Su Huaishang realized there was another entrance there. Brother Ju noticed this when he arrived. If someone did not open it from the inside, they would not have been able to see the stone door from any angle. "You're finally here." Before the door was fully open, Billy's voice came. But his voice sounded strange. It was like he was talking in a vat. It was a bit muffled. The players immediately looked in that direction and saw a giant armored puppet with a height of about 2.5 meters was pushing open the stone door and walking out. Billy's voice came from the body of the puppet. When the armored mannequin completely exited the stone door, Brother Ju and the rest took a closer look and realized on the left side of the mannequin there was a large hole that ran from front to back. The irregular shape of the edge of the hole looked like it had been punched through by something. At that moment, both sides of the hole were sealed by glass. And inside the glass was Billy's head. Hey, what's going on?" Brother Ju asked immediately. "Have you merged with your brother?" Of course, Feng Bujua recognized the armored doll as Billy's younger brother Bill. Beep beep beep. Before Brother Ju finished, Bill's square display face made an emoticon that said, "You can't believe it." "Ha!" Hearing that, Billy chuckled bitterly. "You can put it that way." He added, "To sum it up, in a battle, I lost all my limbs except for my head, and my brother lost his power source and the ability to speak." He paused. On the bright side, now his emoticon function is much better. Chapter 1426. After a short conversation, Billy was ready to lead Feng Bujue and the others into the hidden space behind the stone door. When Brother Ju arrived at the door, he realized that the scene behind the door was very familiar. Is this a ship? He looked at the deck and the mast on the other side of the door. Yes, Billy replied. I think you are not unfamiliar with this place, right? Before Billy's voice died away, Feng Bujue had already realized what the scene in front of him was. Queen Anna's revenge. Haha. Billy chuckled. The answer was obvious. Please. Since Billy had said, after you, Feng Bujue did not say anything more. He took the lead and stepped through the door. After passing through the door, he had a clear view of the entire ship. That's right. This was the deck of the Queen's Revenge. When they looked back, they could see the stone door behind them. The huge stone door frame was fixed to the deck with wooden stakes and rope. There was also a circular magic circle drawn on the deck below. Several seconds later, Brother Ju turned his head to look out the side of the ship. He immediately realized that there was not even water underneath the ship. At that moment, Queen's Revenge was floating in the void. The ship was surrounded by a grayish substance. There was some light that was similar to moonlight shining through the grayish substance, but with this light one could barely see through it with the naked eye. Therefore, there were many fluorescent lanterns on the ship to provide illumination. We meet again, Feng Bujue. Just as the three players, Old Wang and Billy passed through the door one after another, a hoarse voice suddenly sounded. Brother Ju looked in the direction of the voice and saw a familiar face, Blackbeard. You! Even though Feng Bujue could still recognize that it was Blackbeard, the latter had changed a lot. What happened? Ha ha! Blackbeard let out a slightly bitter laugh and limped out of a cabin a few meters away with a cane. Isn't this obvious at a glance? As he spoke, he used his walking stick to knock on his leg that no longer listened to him. His calf made two thumping sounds. It was clear that what was in his pants was no longer flesh and blood, but something like wood. I was crippled by someone. Feng Bujue didn't ask the question, is your self-healing ability not working? Because the answer was self-evident. If there was a way to cure it, Blackbeard wouldn't have to wear prosthetics and use crutches. Then, Brother Ju thought for a moment, then looked around. Your crew, just now, he felt that something was wrong. Why was it that other than the few of them, there was not a single pirate on the deck? Heh! Blackbeard laughed dryly again. He raised the bottle of rum in his hand and took a sip. What do you think? Feng Bujue didn't want to say, but he also didn't want to laugh. He still remembered clearly the first time he met Blackbeard. At that time, Blackbeard's steps were powerful, his voice was like thunder, and his every movement was like a conqueror of the sea. He only needed to stand tall and firm, and dozens of ferocious pirates would be silenced. But now, the person who appeared in front of Brother Ju was like an old drunkard. Not only was his voice so hoarse that it made people feel uncomfortable, but his eyes were also lifeless. If he didn't have his walking stick, it seemed like he wouldn't be able to walk. Rustle, rustle, rustle. While they were talking, Bill had already dragged the stone door and closed it again. From the lava cave on the other side of the door, the place where the door used to be was now an empty space. Looks like you two already know each other. Why don't you make the introductions? Billy then turned to Brother Ju. Feng Bujue thought for a moment before turning to signal the two players behind him. This is Xiao Tan, you should know him already. And this is Su Huaishang. She is quite famous among us travelers from another world. I believe you've heard of her. He paused and then tilted his head toward Bill. Billy, after the twilight of the gods, he took over the court of truth. For some reason, he only has his head left. Billy's brother. He was originally the manager at Brother Zun's place, but now. He shrugged and didn't comment. He continued to point. Ol Wang and Brother Zun are respectively the remnant of the previous era and the demigod of this era. They originally controlled the detective club in the main universe, but now you've seen it for yourself. He paused for half a second before moving his gaze to Blackbeard. Captain Blackbeard, a great pirate who returned from the Sea of Chaos. He is as powerful as the 4 pillars of divinity. Regarding what happened to him, he changed his tone and turned to Blackbeard. Mr. Captain, why don't you tell us about it? Why don't we let Billy start first? Blackbeard said as he sat down with his back against the mast, looking lazy. It's best to start from the beginning. Hearing that, the players looked at Billy, or rather the puppet head in the glass cabin at Billy's ribs. Where should I start? Billy's voice came through the glass. Based on the timeline, the beginning of all this should have happened when you left Devil's Maw Island. In his words, was undeniably Fong Buju. The first thing that X-23 did was to greatly reduce the strength of your data so that for a long time, you would not be able to join any scenario related to the main universe's core characters or events, Billy said. I'm sorry. If possible, I wish to ask you to temporarily leave Thriller Paradise for a while. At that moment, the last thing that X-23 said to Fong Bujue at Devil's Maw Island flashed across the latter's mind. After ensuring that you wouldn't interfere, a war started. Billy paused. Of course, when I say war, it is to pay respect to the dead warriors. In reality, due to the difference in power between the two sides, it would be more appropriate to describe it as a cleanup or a massacre. X-23 launched an attack on the main universe? Fong Bujue reacted quickly and followed the man's train of thought. Not the entire main universe but everything in the main universe that she thought should be destroyed, Billy replied. What is the basis of her differentiation? Brother Ju asked. Then, you should ask her herself, Billy replied. In any case, based on what I know, other than War Demon, including the few of you here, the various forces in the main universe are all on her cleanup list. What about War Demon? Fong Bujue asked. Unfortunately, he has joined forces with her, Billy replied. Hey, that doesn't sound good. Although Xiao Tan did not understand the overly complicated settings, he still had some understanding of X-23 and War Demon's power. Yes, Billy replied. For people other than them, this is naturally bad news. What is the reason for their joining forces? Fong Bujue asked. Was War Demon subdued by X-23 with her power? Or do they have a common goal? I don't know, Billy replied bluntly. But I think the possibility of them having a common goal is higher. Let's not talk about whether X-23 can suppress War Demon in terms of power. Even if she can, War Demon is not the kind of existence that will yield to power. So, they must have reached a consensus on something. Brother Ju's mind spun. After a few seconds of silence, he said, counting from Devil's Maw Island, based on the time here, how long has this war lasted? From the perspective of you humans, it is quite long, about 2 years. Billy replied. But from our perspective, this is definitely a blitz war. At this point, he turned his eyes to the Count of Script, who had flown to the side of the ship, and said, I'll leave the rest to you, Brother Count. Okay. The Count of Script nodded and continued. First, I want to talk about the recent worsening of the social atmosphere in the main universe. For some reason, he took on the tone of a leader lecturing his subordinates. As you can see, even an excellent young man like Billy is casually addressing me as Brother Zune. This was not how it was in the main universe before this, but in recent years, everyone's bottom line seems to have been pushed to its limit. Many young men who were once well-mannered are now full of trash talk, and their actions are becoming more and more unprincipled. At the end of the day, I think Fong Bujue should be held responsible for this. Agreed. When Brother Zune said this, Blackbeard picked up the wine bottle and shouted at the top of his lungs. His expression seemed to indicate that he deeply agreed with this. Hey, we've gone off topic. Why are you suddenly talking about me? Brother Jew complained. Just to liven up the atmosphere. The Count of Script flapped his wings. Don't you think the conversation earlier was a bit depressing? I don't know whether you succeeded in livening up the atmosphere or not. Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes. But I am quite sure you are one of the people who have reached the bottom line. Ha! To his surprise, the Count of Script showed a fearless attitude. If your home is razed to the ground, your form is restricted to the form of an eagle, and you have to rely on eating brains to maintain your power and consciousness. I believe you will have no interest in considering your own morals. Oh. Feng Bujue put on a cold face. Then why don't we start from the point where your home is razed to the ground? Sigh. The Count of Script sighed deeply and said thoughtfully, Actually, it's not that complicated. That day, Billy came to the detective club for tea. Dianli Wang and I sat and chatted with him for a while, and then, without warning, the war demon barged in. What do you mean by barged in without warning? Feng Bujue asked. Of course it means literally, Ol Wang said. If he gave you a heads-up, would it still be called barging in? I mean, Brother Jew continued. With your power, didn't you feel anything when the war demon approached? Didn't the detective club set up something like a defense circle? You're right, the Count of Script said. Brother Zoom continued, logically speaking, for a super demon king at the level of Domo, as long as he exists in the same space as us, even if we are thousands of miles apart, we can roughly sense which direction he is in. Other than that, the detective club has something like a defense circle as well, and it is very powerful, so powerful that even the 4 pillars of divinity would need some time to break through it. I believe there is a but here. Su Huaishang had already guessed what the Count of Script was going to say, so she interjected. But the Count of Script did not disappoint her. With the technology of the explosion tunnel, the above 2 points become meaningless. Isn't that Origin's unique technology? Xiao Tan asked. Does that mean Lu Te also? No. Feng Bujue denied his speculation. It has nothing to do with Lu Te. She is 23. He paused. With her current power, be it the sandbox, the explosion tunnel, or any other technology, it is not that difficult to replicate them. He scratched his chin and said, With this technology, as long as the enemy's coordinates can be confirmed, the war demon can ignore all kinds of external defenses in a very short amount of time and directly reach the target. Yes, and at the time, we knew nothing about this. The Count of Script added. After the war demon barged in, he had no intention of chatting with us. He used his right hand to punch through Bill's body, and at the same time, he used his left hand to use psychic power to crush Billy's body. He used what he did in those 2 seconds to explain his intention. Seeing this, the Count of Script immediately used all of his magic power to connect to the magic energy storage device inside the detective club. Using this powerful magic resonance, he successfully suppressed the war demon's next move. In the next few seconds, I grabbed Billy and Bill and activated the runic array that I thought I'd never need to use. Dianli Wang continued, It's an emergency escape runic array. He paused for a second and said darkly, Until the 4 of us were teleported out, the Count of Script suppressed the war demon for a total of 8 seconds. These 8 seconds have caused permanent damage to the mana pool inside his body. Therefore, he can only maintain this relatively relaxed physiological state. Only then, his condition will not worsen. As for us, at this moment, Billy continued, as you can see, my remaining head has replaced Bill's destroyed energy core. His body has solved the problem of my mobility. Fortunately, us brothers can communicate with each other through some kind of telepathy that outsiders can't hear. So, there's no problem in communicating with each other. As he spoke, Bill's face made the same expression, but it was unclear what it meant. However, Billy's next sentence took a turn. The Court of Truth was not so lucky. Based on what I found out later, when the war demon ambushed the detective club, the Court of Truth was attacked as well. The ones who attacked the Court of Truth were the redundant soldiers that had been modified by 23. Chapter 14:27. So, she has mastered Link and Ed's technology as well? Feng Bujue repeated this conclusion in his mind. Then, he went through all the possibilities that this conclusion could lead to. Several seconds later, he asked, "Earlier you said she has also modified the redundancy?" "Yes," Billy replied. "To allow these guys to survive in the main universe for a long time, 23rd made some modifications to their structure. First of all, this didn't sound like something an NPC would say. Second of all, even if he could say it, where did he find out about this?" "How did you know?" Feng Bujue asked. "An anomaly by the name of Red Iron told us," Billy said. "I believe you know him. He is from Organization Z." "Oh?" Feng Bujue's brows relaxed slightly. "Is Red Iron still alive?" Hearing this news, Brother Ju was quite relieved. He was really worried that Red Iron and Wing had been killed by 23rd on Devil Munching Island. If that was the case, then he would have to take some responsibility. Now that he heard that Red Iron was still alive, Feng Bujue sighed in relief. Since Red Iron was still alive, then Wing, who shared the same body with him, should be fine as well. "He is alive, and he has given us quite a lot of useful information," Billy replied. "If not for him, perhaps the few of us would not be here talking to you right now." Feng Bujue nodded, and his mind wandered back to the information that he had just heard. "Then, as you said, 23RD's modification is to allow the redundancy to survive in the main universe for a long time. Does that mean the original redundancy will not be able to survive here for a long time?" "Yes," Billy replied. "The redundancy, to put it bluntly, they are low-level redundant creatures created by higher-level anomalies. Compared to the complicated anomalies, the redundancy is very simple and pure in terms of data. Therefore, when they are active in the main universe, the highest consciousness can easily locate them and wipe them out. In other words, the modification of 23 has caused them to become less pure?" Su Huaishang asked as she picked up on one of the key points in the conversation. "Ha!" Hearing that, the Count of Script added with a smile. "It is not that difficult. Actually, she has collected the data of various creatures that originally existed in the main universe and randomly added them to the redundancy's production line so that each redundancy will have some data of the native creatures in the main universe. In this way, it will be much more difficult for the system to find the coordinates of these redundant soldiers. Furthermore, the complexity of wiping them out will greatly increase," Feng Bujue said with a smile. Feng Bujue immediately understood what the man meant and added, "Ha! That is indeed a good idea. Is this the time to admire others?" Dianxia King used his unhappy expression to mock his brother Ju. Before Feng Bujue could answer, to stop him from arguing, Billy quickly added, "Actually, the normal redundancy is not the biggest problem. After the modification, they have lost their data purity and are actually weaker than the original. Even though there is an endless number of them, we are not completely helpless against them. But among the redundancy army, there is a group of extremely troublesome fellows, the sweepers." Sweepers were independent redundant disk arrays. When Link and Ed created these creatures, they used the codename RAID, redundant arrays of independent disks. They designed them according to the concept of the main force responsible for clearing out powerful players and NPCs during a hyperdimensional invasion. The intelligence of the sweepers was similar to the redundancy army. They were not AI lifeforms, and they did not have the ability to think or learn. They only knew how to follow orders. But compared to the redundancy army, the sweepers' combat ability had a qualitative leap. Each of them had the combat ability of a level 3 anomaly, and they were all equipped with tactical control modules. No way. Feng Bujue's expression shifted slightly. A mass-produced creature of that level cannot be modified with simple methods like the redundancy army. But 23 still managed to modify it successfully, Billy said. Billy continued. Although we don't really understand the theory behind it, according to Red Iron, she used Infinite's genetic data on the sweepers under her command. What the F***ck? In his agitation, Feng Bujue cursed out loud, and to his surprise, he was not censored. Based on your knowledge, how many sweepers are there? That's right. I'm not sure, Billy replied. But there shouldn't be too many because they basically appear alone. The only time they appeared in a group it was the day they attacked my pirate group. At this second, Blackbeard naturally took over Billy's words and said with his hoarse voice, I remember it very clearly, 17, not one more, not one less. He was like a standard drunkard, mixing in these unnecessary nonsense as if waiting for his brain to catch up with the rhythm of his words. That dusk, 17 people that you called sweepers, leading countless redundancy army on the sea, they surrounded Queen Anna's revenge. Those bastards didn't say a word to us. There was no negotiation, no mercy, and they didn't accept surrender. Before the war, my crew understood that this was a kind of battle they had never fought before. Our opponents didn't care about glory, bounty, or anything else. These guys without blood and tears until they couldn't move at all, they only had one goal, and that was to kill all of us. Speaking of this, Blackbeard raised the bottle and took another sip of rum. Then, he looked solemn and said 4 very heavy words, we won. He used we, not I. As a notorious villain, an extremely evil pirate who basically didn't care about the life and death of anyone other than himself, perhaps only he himself knew what kind of experience made him firmly add the word, we. After that, Blackbeard raised his head, hooked his collar with his fingers and pulled down, revealing his neck. On his neck there was a hideous wound. Just by looking at it, it was impossible to tell what kind of attack he suffered to leave such a terrible scar. Unfortunately, I don't feel victorious. 2 seconds later, Blackbeard laughed bitterly and self-deprecatingly. The spoils I got were probably a prosthetic leg and a sexy voice. He paused. And what I lost? He glanced around the empty deck and shook his head. Is too much. At this point, he seemed to be unable to continue. He took another sip of rum and looked into the distance with murky eyes. Once again, he fell into silence. For a moment, the atmosphere on the deck was heavy. When someone really needed to come out and liven up the atmosphere, no one spoke up. After a while, Feng Bujue spoke to Billy. So, what's the situation with the other forces? The Kingdom of the Dead, the Kingdom of Monsters, and the Phantom Demon Church. I'm not sure, Billy replied. Now 2/3 of the main universe has been reduced to chaos. There are either wandering brainless monsters or patrolling soldiers. We are unable to contact people from the other forces. Other than that, something seems to have happened at the inner world. The Z organization and Origin have not appeared for a long time. They are probably exhausted from running around as well. He paused for a second before continuing. However, a while ago, Oink did come here to pass us some information. Oh? The few of you have been hunted down and have gone into hiding, but Second Senior can still move around outside? Feng Bujue asked. This is a very important piece of information that I'm about to share with you, Billy said. The mirror dimension seems to be safe for now. Even level 23 is unable to invade that dimension. Oink, on the other hand, seems to have come to some kind of agreement with Dorma, the god of eternal life. Therefore, he can use the mirror dimension to travel back and forth from place to pass on information. Even though his information cannot be confirmed and the effectiveness of his information is unknown, it is better than nothing. Then what did he tell you when he came here last time? Brother Jew asked. He said. Billy was about to answer. But zh. In the surrounding gray void, a series of strange sounds suddenly rang out. TSK. We've been discovered again. Dianxian Wang raised his eyes to look around. We just switched to this place not too long ago. Just as he said that, streams of data started to appear in the gray space. Feng Bujua looked through the data, and he could see it clearly. A large number of redundant soldiers had torn open the space and crawled through it. Quickly leave through the stone door. Run back to the chaos and we'll figure out a solution there. The next second, the Count of Script shouted. Actually, it was fine if he did not say that because this was their only way out. When the strange sound came, Billy had telepathically told Bill to push open the stone door. Thankfully, the soldiers needed time to invade the dimension and get close to the ship. These few seconds were enough for them to escape. Soon, the stone door opened again. Billy and his brother ran out first. Brother Ju and Ol Wang followed closely behind. Xiao Tan, Su Huaishang, and Feng Bujua also walked out the stone door. Hey! What are you doing spacing out? When they reached the door, Feng Bujua turned back and saw that Blackbeard was still leaning against the mast, drinking silently. You can't get up on your own? As he spoke, Brother Ju wanted to go over and help him up. You can go. But Blackbeard waved at him and said in a calm tone, the great Captain Blackbeard will not abandon the ship and run for his life. Feng Bujua knew what that meant, and he respected the man's decision. Okay. Brother Ju stopped. He looked at the man for a few seconds and said darkly, Goodbye, Captain. The stone door closed again. Blackbeard was the only one left on the ship. The dominator of the sea had never looked so calm before. In this calmness there was even a hint of sadness. When the tens of thousands of redundant soldiers surrounded him, Blackbeard stood up unhurriedly. He raised the walking stick in his hand and swept it, easily smashing the stone door not far away into pieces. When the pieces fell to the ground, the magic circle on the deck also dimmed, announcing that the portal had completely lost its effect. While at this moment Blackbeard paced slowly on the deck and started to sing with his hoarse voice, We drink, we plunder, we do whatever we want, we can get everything without spending a single cent. We will take care of you first, then we will take your girl. We are the Chaos Pirates. When he walked across the deck, many faces of the past appeared in front of him. It was as if those people were still on the ship, right next to him. Mr. Volger was still sitting on the barrel, scolding the clumsy newcomers. Erdini was standing at the helm, chewing on an apple. A garlic, Godfrey, and Marty were still under the mast, playing their little game of poker. Nezru was still holding the mirror like a fool, tidying up his cake. The two real fools, the Mark brothers, were still waxing the door of the captain's cabin under the persuasion of the hoarse voice. At this moment Blackbeard sang that line, Let's sing Wo-ho together. But no one responded to his Wo-ho, because he was the only one left on the ship. Let's sing Wo-ho again. Blackbeard knew this, but he still sang. We roam the Chaos Sea. We brave the hurricane, we scare your balls, we are the Chaos Pirates. By the time he sang this line, a redundant soldier had already boarded the ship and rushed toward Blackbeard without stopping. Blackbeard grabbed the soldier's neck with one arm and stopped him from rushing forward. Then, he exerted force and twisted the soldier's head off. We leave our hometown, we leave our mother. For plunder and revelry, we will cut off your ears, break your toes, and make you drink our urine. More and more soldiers boarded the ship, and sweepers appeared among them. But Blackbeard didn't stop singing when he was facing the enemy. If you sail to our sea, you'd better listen to this law first. We will take your ship and throw you into the sea. We will happily smash your face, cut off your penis and feed it to the crocodiles. Because we are the Chaos Pirates. The number of soldiers was still increasing. They kept pouring out from the gray clouds and covered the entire Queen Anna's Revenge like locusts. Blackbeard's figure was gradually covered and swallowed in the vast sea of soldiers. But until the last moment, he was still using his injured voice to sing the pirate's song at the top of his lungs. He sang the line that no one would respond to, "Let's sing YOHOHO." Chapter 1428. The Monster Kingdom was located at the border of the main universe. In terms of land area and social structure, it was very similar to a human country in the real world. There were all kinds of monsters living in the kingdom, from the elves, goblins, and dwarves of the fantasy system, to the aliens, predators, terminators of the science fiction system, and all kinds of Eastern and Western ghosts and ghosts of the supernatural system. In terms of diversity of races and beliefs, there was probably no other place in the world that was as inclusive as the Monster Kingdom. The monsters living there worked, studied, and played every day. They also married, reproduced, and paid taxes. Due to the location of the Monster Kingdom being extremely remote, it was uncontested by the military, and it was separated from the other areas of the main universe by a void fault that was extremely difficult to cross. Therefore, long before the era of the four pillar gods, this was a neutral area, a relatively free paradise. However, today this place was also under attack. At midnight, Monster Kingdom time, with the sound of explosions in the tunnel, the Redundancy Legion broke into this land without warning and started a merciless massacre without saying a word. Just like when they attacked Queen Anna's Revenge, they did not know how to negotiate or show mercy. They only had cold, meticulous, murderous intent. The war began just like that. Unexpectedly, the Redundancy Legion's first wave of attack only lasted less than 30 minutes, and then it ended. This was because the 500 Redundancy Legion that broke in first were annihilated after conquering only 4 blocks. It turned out that the initial point of the explosion tunnel happened to be the residential area of the behemoth. Although the Monster Kingdom was a neutral country, in terms of combat power, they were definitely not to be trifled with. Many of the normal residents here could go to low-level scenarios and become bosses. If there were civilian experts, it was hard to say how strong they would be. Moreover, other than the basic combat power of living creatures, the Monster Kingdom also had Star Wars-level hardware, S-Layers-level magic power, and a large number of black technologies that belonged to an unknown system. For example, Orquan Desi was also a resident of the Monster Kingdom. Although his combat power was average, the weapons and equipment that he forged could give a very weak race amazing combat power. All in all, this uncontested land was not so easy to deal with. However, the Redundancy Legion was not the kind of army that would give up. Before dawn, a new round of attacks had already arrived. After the first wave of probing, the tactical control modules of the sweeper captains, who were in charge of mobilizing the small fries, immediately came up with a countermeasure. For the second wave of attacks, they directly mobilized more than 50 sweepers and 50,000 redundant troops. They used more than 20 explosive tunnels to launch simultaneous attacks from all over the Monster Kingdom. This time, the residents could not hold on any longer. Fortunately, the kingdom's government responded in time. They immediately used the emergency broadcast system to inform the entire country's citizens. Oh no, the monsters to take refuge in the government office, equivalent to the kingdom of monsters. At the same time, the king personally gathered the strongest warriors in the country to form a temporary army to defend the country and prepare to fight against the redundant army. Believe it or not, the king of the Monster Kingdom was elected by the people, and the current king was a pile of poop. Of course, poop was just a casual term. As a monster, it naturally had a name. Its official name should be the _Christmas_poo. As for its appearance, it was a dark brown pile of poop that was standing vertically. Its size was similar to that of a normal person's poop. At the top of its head, it could be regarded as a head for the time being. There were 2 eyes and a mouth, and 2 small hands on both sides of the poop body. There was also a small Christmas hat on the top of its head. The king's name was Mr. Hankey, and he came from South Park. He had an alcoholic wife and 3 children who were still in elementary school. He was good friends with Jesus and Santa Claus. Presumably, when people saw his hometown, they thought, the monster kingdom was in the bag. Yes, as one of the quasi-gods in South Park, Mr. Hankey was very strong. His ability to control poop could create poop out of thin air and turn it into anything at will, including a poop plane, a poop tank, a giant poop weapon, and so on. This was very similar to Green Lantern's ability, but Mr. Hankey's ability did not require willpower as the energy source. In addition, Mr. Hankey could also directly use poop as a destructive substance to attack the enemy. For example, he could gather a huge amount of poop and blast it at the enemy in the form of a tsunami or a tornado, using the purest acceleration to destroy the enemy's body. All in all, the king's strength was not to be underestimated, and the warriors he gathered were no ordinary people. The Ghost 8 collection of the Ghost Power Company all came out. Several high elf princes who were proficient in all kinds of weapons and magic also volunteered. There were also several ancestor-level characters from the Penishade Dragons, elite warriors from the Iron Blood Tribe, ancestor-level bosses from the Blood Clan and the Werewolves, and so on. This group of demons and ghosts working together was no laughing matter. Even though the Redundancy Army had a huge advantage in terms of numbers, and they had already surrounded all the monsters in the government office, at the center of the kingdom and launched a wheeled siege, until sunrise, the Redundancy Army was still unable to break through the defense circle of the Royal Army. Not only that, the Redundancy Army had paid the price of 25 sweepers and almost 30,000 Redundancy Army soldiers. Just as Mr. Hankey was considering whether to counterattack or not, something unexpected happened. It was the darkest moment before dawn, and the Redundancy Army suddenly stopped their relentless attack. Almost at the same time, in the distance, a monstrous demonic energy suddenly pressed down on the border. Every creature in the monster kingdom felt a chill and fear that came from the depths of their soul at that moment. They knew in their hearts that something was coming. Furthermore, he did not come through the explosion tunnel. He used his power to open a path in the void fault to come in. In the entire main universe, only one NPC could do this. He was the Supreme Demon King, the symbol of darkness, an existence that far surpassed the 4 pillar gods. Even light itself had to retreat when it saw him. Therefore, when he stepped into the territory of the monster kingdom, the night was extended infinitely. Is this the end? This thought flashed through the minds of the Royal Army, who had been in high spirits. There was nothing scarier than despair, and what they were about to face was practically despair itself. An hour ago, on the scorched earth of chaos, Feng Bujue, Wang Tanji, Su Huaishang, the Billy brothers, Old Wang and Zun Bro, a total of 5 people and a bird, were running wildly across the vast black land. In the sky behind them, there was a black mass of Redundancy Army soldiers that stretched as far as the eye could see. Are you kidding me? There are so many of them! Xiao Tan yelled as he ran, and his face was filled with disbelief. Actually, it's our bad luck. Dianxia King used his young boy's body to run behind the players. Looking at their original flight path, they are definitely not here to catch us. They just happened to pass by and saw us, so they changed their path to chase after us. Oh? Hearing that, Feng Bujue seemed to have thought of something and asked, Are you sure they were going to go somewhere else? Of course, Dianxia King said. We have been fighting the Redundancy Army for almost 2 years. Even if no one provided us with information, we have already figured out their various characteristics. It doesn't matter if they're redundant soldiers or sweepers, they're actually not that different from bees and ants. In fact, they're even simpler than insects. They always have a clear goal, and they use the simplest and most efficient method to carry out their collective actions. You only need to observe the same thing twice, and it's enough to deduce the pattern of their actions. By the way, regarding the biological structure of the redundancy army, we have also studied it. The Count of Script, who flew above King, added, after many vivisection experiments, I can say with certainty, the modified redundancy army will not disintegrate into data fragments after they are fatally injured. They will leave behind a body with flesh and blood like a normal creature, and the body will carry the characteristics of the creature that provided them with the genetic data. Let me guess. Feng Bujue narrowed his eyes. Your so-called dissection always ends with brain eating, right? Sometimes it ends with brain eating, the Count of Script added. But that is not the main point. The main point is we know them very well in every aspect. Feng Bujue nodded. Fine, as long as you can confirm it. He paused before asking, then, where do they plan to fly to, can you tell me? Once he said that, everyone understood what he was going to do. Ha! After giving it some thought, Su Huaishang smiled. That is a good idea. But I don't think that is a good idea. The next second, Billy's muffled voice came from inside Bill's body. Based on the number, they are most likely on their way to some kind of attack mission. If you go to their destination, you will be heading toward the battlefield. That's right. Feng Bujue said as he slowed down. Since it is a battlefield, there will be a battle, and a battle requires at least two parties to start, and these two parties. Xiao Tan caught up to his train of thought and said, if one party is confirmed to be the enemy, then the other party. Before he finished, he turned to his brother Ju. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Feng Bujue very tacitly finished Xiao Tan's sentence. I have an idea as well. Su Huaishang turned back to glance at O.L. Wang and added, since you said, they always have a clear goal and use the simplest and most efficient method to carry out a group mission, then, their current number can indirectly explain how powerful the enemy they are going to face is. That's right. Feng Bujue naturally thought of that as well. He added, O.L. Wang, Billy, when the Red Army is sent to capture you, how many people would they send? Would there be so many? Not that many, Billy replied. Even if all of us stayed together, we wouldn't have reached that number. He paused for a moment. But the strange thing is, there isn't a single sweeper in the army behind us. Yes. O.L. Wang added, even if we are alone, when they come to capture us, they will send at least two sweepers to hold the line. Then, could it be? Feng Bujue said as he thought about it, the army behind us is not the only army they have sent to attack us. Could there be other units before or after them? Billy muttered. That is indeed a possibility, but his tone became serious. If it is as you said, and there are other troops before and after this batch of troops, then I have never seen an attack of this scale before. Ha! Feng Bujue laughed. Today is a good chance to see it, isn't it? Time returned to the present. Monster Kingdom, 10 kilometers to the east of the government office. This was the tunnel closest to the front line. Until not long ago, there were still many Red Army soldiers rushing to the front line. However, this supply line was inexplicably cut off 3 minutes ago. 3 minutes later, a large shadow suddenly shot out from the tunnel. It was none other than Bill. Following behind him were 3 other people. They were Xiao Tan, Su Huaishang, and Yanli King. Then there was the Count of Script, who flew out with his wings. When they rushed out, their expressions were tense. When they reached this end of the tunnel, they did not relax. Everyone turned back to look at the tunnel entrance as if waiting for something. Screech. The person they were waiting for had arrived. Feng Bujue leaped out from the tunnel. He took a step in the air and turned around. Facing the tunnel, he assumed a posture as if he was about to unleash some kind of attack. His legs were bent and his upper body was leaning forward. His arms were straight and crossed in front of his body. His left arm was above and his right arm was below. His two hands were slightly tense. Purgatory. This move should be very powerful because Feng Bujue started to call out the name of the move. Peerless. Just as he said those two words, several Red Army soldiers came out from the tunnel in front of him. Obviously, the supply line was not cut off. Brother Ju and the rest were holding back the Red Army soldiers at the other end of the tunnel. Now that the group had successfully reached this end of the tunnel, the Red Army soldiers would naturally follow. Explosive heat. Feng Bujue did not give the Red Army too much time. He quickly increased his energy to the required level and activated the skill. Wave Cannon. As soon as he said that, the skill was activated. In that instant, a shock wave that was powerful enough to make space and time tremble shot out from Feng Bujue's fingertip and hit the center of the tunnel. Chapter 1429. 2 weeks ago, in a certain multiverse. At night, outside an abandoned carnival on the outskirts of Gotham City. There were two people who were carrying out an unspeakable transaction here. As the light gradually dimmed, the Kongtong seal and the Heavenly Spirit's Earthly Fiend's box were reduced to dust in Dr. Manhattan's left and right hand. It's done. Then, Dr. Manhattan used his usual calm tone to tell Feng Bujue, yes. Brother Ju was standing 2 meters away from the doctor. Hearing that, he quietly felt the changes in his body and said, but I don't seem to feel anything special. That's normal. In the end, it's only your projection that has undergone this change, and not your real body that exists in some other distant dimension, Dr. Manhattan replied. In fact, you should be thankful for this. If your real body had undergone the change just now, you would definitely have experienced great physical pain. Brother Ju muttered to himself and looked down at his body using the data view. If you look at it, I can see that the data strength has been greatly improved. To be specific, your body density has now stabilized at a very high value. Even without any protection, you can withstand most conventional weapons in the human world, Dr. Manhattan continued. With your talent, I'm sure you'll soon be able to figure out how to control your strength. Also, the energy stored in the Heavenly Spirit Earthly Fiend box has become a part of you. Your resistance and control of non-material attacks such as magic spells, curses, and pure energy has increased significantly. That's right, Dr. Manhattan continued. With your talent, I'm sure you'll be able to figure out how to control your strength. Also, the energy stored in the Heavenly Spirit Earthly Fiend box has become part of you. While the doctor explained, Feng Bujue had already opened the game menu and started to check his inventory and equipment. Since Dr. Manhattan was paying attention to his every move and psychological change, after the first part of the explanation, the doctor continued, with regards to the items that have appeared on your body, they are all due to some kind of space-time reversal effect caused by the Kongtong seal. The theory behind this effect, even I cannot explain it. I only know that the particles of this Kongtong seal do not belong to any of the universes that I know of, and the items that it traces back seem to come from many different universes. This phenomenon is beyond the scope of all the theories that I know of. As Feng Bujue listened to the doctor, he finished his inspection. Unfortunately, the result gave him a headache. Brother Ju had thought that the Kongtong seal would be able to recover the items that were removed by X-23 and refused to be recovered by the Dream Company. In other words, the items that were destroyed at the end of the scenario where he returned to Devil's Maw Island, but he was wrong. The Kongtong seal's retracing effect was not something that could be accurately set to a specific point in time. If that was the case, he could rewind further and find all the items that he had lost, like the blade of must-penetrate that was destroyed by the Mad Eye, the one-hit kill pistol, the contrametal, and so on. The strategic value of these items was much higher than the equipment that he had lost. In reality, the Kongtong Seal's retracing effect was randomly selected from the timeline that his character had been through. Therefore, Feng Bujue had obtained the following items: Mario's wrench, children's baseball bat, tattered bat cape, decayed residue, marijuana X2, immovable mountain, and power gloves. Perhaps it was a coincidence or some kind of limitation by the system, but of these items, none of them were related to the plot. Of course, that was not the main point. The main point was, basically, most of these items were trash. First of all, Mario's wrench had a medium attack power, a fire attribute, and a special effect that had a chance to inflict heavy damage to the head. In the early stages of the game, this was naturally a very powerful weapon, but now in an environment where players were around level 50, the weapons of the players were basically strong or extremely in terms of attack power. This was because when faced with a bunch of strong or extremely defensive equipment, a medium attack power would be weaker. Furthermore, the special effects of high-level equipment were generally much better than this. Even if it did not have any attributes, it would still be stronger than this. Secondly, the children's baseball bat was a normal quality weapon that had no attack power, attribute, or special effect. It was made from rubber, and it was just a toy. In the early stages of the game, it had suffered the fate of being sold by Brother Jew, and now it was even worse. Then there were the tattered bat cape, marijuana X2, and power glove. These three items were unable to be taken out of the scenario, but were not considered plot items. However, because Feng Bujue had once possessed them in the scenario, they had been retraced. In terms of attribute, the cape was also a no item. As for the marijuana, it was just a normal marijuana item, and the players could not use this high item because the system would not allow the players to experience the effects of drugs in the game. As for the power gloves, it was a bit unclear. Its quality was tattered, its defense was weak, and it had no defense attribute at all. Its special effect was, in the secondary dimension of the world without games, the power glove had the ability to control the matter there like the law of causality, but whether it could work in other places was still unknown. Lastly, there was the molted residue. If anyone still remembered, this was something that would be produced after the magical disintegrator failed to create an item. In other words, it was a complete piece of trash. In conclusion, Feng Bujue traced back all the items, and there was only one useful item, and that was the immovable mountain. During the semifinals of S2, Brother Ju had used Bian to blast this orb out and defeated Lin Yan in one hit. Now that he had recovered it, it meant that he had gotten back an extra skill that could be used to defend himself. If necessary, he could even use it as an ammo, so it could be counted as a reward for him. "You seem to be a bit disappointed," Professor Manhattan said after seeing Brother Ju's reaction. "Ah, it's okay," Feng Bujue replied as he focused his attention on his skill bar. Then, there was a clear change in his expression. After being cleaned up by number 23, the Dream Company had only restored 2 skills for Feng Bujue, which were Jeppo and Rankyaku. Feng Bujue still had 4 skills in the storage room, which were Ice Alchemist's Persistence, Not So Hasty Repair, Tri-Beam, and Flying Dragon Fist. Considering that his skill bar was very loose, Brother Ju naturally brought all these skills with him. Even if there were 2 skills, Ice Alchemist's Persistence was almost useless due to his high level of mastery, and Tri-Beam, which Brother Ju was unlikely to use, it was unlikely that he would use it. However, after Professor Manhattan restored him, Feng Bujue found that his skill bar had become empty. I say, Brother Ju was obviously very dissatisfied with this. He immediately looked at the professor and said, "Is there a mistake? Why didn't I recover my lost abilities, and even my current abilities are gone?" "They're not gone. You just turned a blind eye to them," Professor Manhattan replied. "Your metaphysical answer is really helpful." Feng Bujue stared at him with his dead fish eyes and replied in a sarcastic tone. You should understand what I mean. In response, Professor Manhattan's emotions did not fluctuate at all. He continued to speak in a flat tone. Since you've absorbed the dual powers of the Kongtong seal and the Heavenly Spirit's Earthly Fiend's box, does the so-called skill bar that fate gave you still have any meaning? As soon as he said this, Feng Bujue's mind lit up. He instantly understood what Professor Manhattan meant. Then, he raised his hand, put two fingers together, and suddenly launched a spell in the distance. In the next second, a psionic shock wave shot out from his fingertips, pierced through the air, and penetrated into the water. The move he used was not a skill that he had mastered before. It was a skill that he had seen before. It was the Spirit Spear Vulture Strike that was used by the Mystic King in the S2 team against the Golden Warhammer squad. At that time, the opponent used this move to attack the infected fighter, created by Musashi Kokanai, sent out by Feng Bujue. Brother Ju watched the battle from the dark with a data perspective. Understood. It doesn't matter if I'm invisible, because I don't need to see anymore, Feng Bujue said after completing this experiment. Yes. Professor Manhattan nodded. As long as you can understand the truth sequence that you see, you'll naturally be able to replicate its operation. This has something in common with my control of elementary particles, but it's much simpler. He paused for a moment. For example, let's say that we have a painting in front of us. Your ability is to use your own method to recreate a very similar painting after seeing this painting. On the other hand, I'll have to start from the paint of the painting, the composition of the canvas, and even the original artist's every brain cell, as well as their various emotional experiences in the timeline. Okay, you don't have to tell me about the quantum observer level. Feng Bujue did not intend to let the professor finish. Unless I become an existence with the same ability as you, it'll be a waste of time. Professor Manhattan pondered. So, are you satisfied now? The deal is made. Feng Bujue gave a definite answer. But, there's a small matter outside of the deal that I'd like to ask for your help. As he spoke, he took out the battered bat cloak from his backpack. I'd like to ask you to keep it for me for the time being. Keep it for me? Professor Manhattan asked. So, who am I going to give it to after this? Heh! Brother Ju smiled at him and said in English, You tell me. Professor Manhattan was silent for a few seconds. Then, he looked at Feng Bujue and said, I understand. I'll give it to him. Now, in the main universe, the Monster Kingdom, Feng Bujue's unparalleled Inferno Heat Wave Cannon blasted the explosion tunnel. When one did not know how to close a portal, it was undoubtedly a good idea to use this kind of power that could shatter space and time to crack it by brute force. When the tunnel exploded, more than half of the monsters that had just crawled out were immediately crushed by the space-time singularity. The remaining monsters did not hesitate to attack Brother Ju, who was a few meters away. Even though Feng Bujue had just finished his attack, he was not completely helpless. Even if he did not rely on others, he had at least 3 to 5 ways to deal with this wave of attack. However, since he had already made the arrangements before the operation, he did not do anything else. Whoosh! At that moment, Xiao Tan and Su Huaishang both leaped into the air. Xiao Tan flashed behind Feng Bujue with lightning speed and grabbed Brother Ju by the waist. Then, with a step, the two of them disappeared into thin air. At the same time, Su Huaishang unsheathed her twin swords. Because she was equipped with the passive skill, left and right interfighting technique, Su Huaishang could use 2 different skills at the same time with both hands, provided the skill could be used with one hand. At that moment, she used Falling Flower and Flying Catkins. She used Blood Mist Wind in her left hand and Main Et Nox Slash in her right hand. The 2 slashes had different effects and attack ranges, and they each used the most suitable angle, speed, and strength to hit the redundant soldiers who were standing irregularly. When Su Huaishang finished her attack and slowly descended from the sky, the corpses of the monsters had already fallen to the ground one step ahead of her. Wang Tongji and Feng Bujue appeared behind Bill and Dianli Wang, as if they had teleported. This was why Feng Bujue did nothing after he destroyed the tunnel, because before Brother Ju broke through the tunnel, he told his two teammates, "If there are any monsters that slip through the net and attack me after I use my skill, just in case, Xiao Tan will be responsible for pulling me to a safe spot. Xiao Shang, you will go and kill the monsters that are chasing after me." After all, Feng Bujue was going to use unparalleled Inferno Heat Wave Cannon. Even if his stamina and spirit power were very high, he still took into account the possibility that he would enter a state of exhaustion after using the skill. That was why he came up with this plan. Even though he was not in that state yet, due to his trust in his teammates and laziness, he did not do anything else after he used the skill. Impressive, impressive. After seeing Su Huaishang's performance, Feng Bujue could not help but praise her. "Every time we meet again after a period of time, your strength will increase noticeably. To be honest, I really admire you." "Isn't that something to be expected?" Su Huaishang, who returned to the surface, did not show any joy at Feng Bujue's praise. She merely replied calmly, "For a professional player, improving their strength is part of their job. There is nothing to praise or brag about." "Haha. Now that you put it that way, those actors who would come out to brag about how professional they are when they are injured, go into the water in winter, and wear a leather jacket in summer are put in an awkward position," Brother Ju complained. "I think you should use the analogy of an athlete who receives a high salary but is out of shape and can't even pass the physical fitness test," Su Huaishang said, "because the actor in your example." Here, she raised both of her hands to make air quote. "Whether or not he can be called an actor is still up for debate." You have a point." Feng Bujue nodded. "Think about it, if the investor who hired these actors did not do it for the sake of acting skills but to guarantee the box office, from that perspective, they have done their job. Are you two done chatting?" Seeing that they were getting more and more excited, Dianhai interrupted them with his unhappy expression. "You know that 90% of what you say can't be heard or understood by us, due to the system's shielding, right?" He turned his head and looked at the dark sky in the distance. "If I am not mistaken, this should be the Monster Kingdom. That explains why they sent so many soldiers. In short, now that we have arrived at our destination and have temporarily shaken off the pursuers, what should we do next?" This question was naturally directed at Feng Bujue. "Before I say what to do," Brother Ju also looked at Ol Wang and replied, "You." He glanced at the Billy brothers. "You feel it too, right?" "Ah," Billy said, "the war demon is also here, but he is still very far away from us." "If I am not mistaken," Feng Bujue said, "I believe we have arrived just in time for the war demon and the redundancy army to attack the Monster Kingdom." He paused and asked, "Speaking of which, the war has been going on for 2 years. Why did they only attack now?" 1. The Monster Kingdom is isolated and extremely difficult to reach. The Count of Script then said, "Also, at the beginning of the war, the number of redundancy army was not as large as it is now. With their combat ability back then, they might not have been able to take down this place." Feng Bujue said, "The Monster Kingdom is that powerful?" "In terms of individual power, the Monster Kingdom is far stronger than any of the 4 pillars of divinity," the Count of Script said. "However, the citizens of the kingdom are content with their lives here and have no intention of getting involved in the power struggle of the main universe. From the perspective of the 4 pillars of divinity, this borderland, that is separated from the rest of the main universe, has no value to occupy and is a hard bone to chew. So," at this time Billy added, Using the history of your world as an example, it's like, during World War II, Iceland suddenly had twice the combat power of the German army. Under such circumstances, I'm afraid no one would attack Iceland before the other battlefields were completely settled, right? Fong Bujua thought about it for a few seconds. Your example is very good, but does that mean? As he spoke, his eyes shifted. Now, the Monster Kingdom is the last stronghold of the main universe. Chapter 1430. The history of the Monster Kingdom was very long, even longer than the existence of the four-pillar god. From the name, it could be seen that when the kingdom was first established, it was still a centralized and hereditary country. But as time passed, the society of the Monster Kingdom experienced a series of development, conflicts, and changes, and finally became a place where democracy was promoted. If the history of this period was taken out alone, it could be written into a novel. Therefore, there is no need to go into detail here. We only need to know that the life of the residents of the Monster Kingdom today was not easy to come by. It was exchanged with the sacrifice of countless martyrs. Because of this, when their common home was invaded, when their stable life was threatened, the determination of the monsters to resist was very firm and thorough. Furthermore, whether it was the war demon or the redundancy army, they did not accept any form of surrender. Even if some of the monsters wanted to betray them, there was no way out. At this point, we have to say that if the redundancy army knew how to play a little strategy, they might have conquered the Monster Kingdom long before Fong Bujua and the others arrived. If it was Brother Ju who led the army to attack the Monster Kingdom, he would follow the principle of encircling the enemy to ensure their safety. He would use all kinds of tricks to win this war with the smallest price and the biggest chance of success. But the war demon was not Fong Bujua. The war demon never used any strategy, because he disdained and did not need to do that kind of thing. In his era, Thriller Paradise was a very simple and pure world. At that time, God represented light and order, and demon ruled chaos and darkness. There were not so many forces, and there were not so many gray areas, much less so-called free will. In that era of black and white, light and darkness were equals, and each had the power equivalent to half of the entire universe. On the day of the doomsday, the supervisor god, who had little divine power left, fell in the catastrophe, and the war demon, who was sealed in the door to the void by the supervisor god, survived. After countless years, in this new era, because the ancient guardian demon, King Dienli left the seal, the gate to the void opened again, and the war demon reappeared. With half of the power of the previous era's main universe, Sui Xiong had an obvious advantage over the weak, new gods and the sub-gods who were weaker than the new gods. Although the total amount of cosmic energy in the new era was several times higher than that of the previous era, there was still no single NPC that could compete with it in terms of power. Moreover, this kind of difference in quality was also difficult to fill with quantity. For example, if the strength of the head of demons was 1/10 of the war demons, then would it be possible to defeat the war demon by replicating 11 heads of demons? The answer was obviously no. Similarly, even though there were many strong people in the Monster Kingdom, and there were some who were close to or even stronger than the four pillar gods, their chances of winning against the war demon were still very slim. This was something that all the monsters, including King Hanky, were aware of. But they had no other choice, because this was a war where they couldn't even surrender. The war would only end when every single one of them died. Under such circumstances, despair didn't seem so scary. Since death was destined to come and was right in front of them, why not live like a hero in the last moments of their lives? With such a mindset, the civilians who were originally taking refuge in the government office area also spontaneously organized themselves and joined the temporary defense army. With the idea that killing one wouldn't be a loss and killing two would be a gain, they planned to fight against the redundant soldiers. And the redundant soldiers wouldn't just sit and wait for their deaths. Just now, when the war demon tore open the void and invaded this space, the sweepers unanimously developed a strategy of temporarily stopping the attack and waiting for the war demon to arrive, based on this unforeseen event. That was why the entire army of sweepers stopped for a while. But now, the number of the monster army was increasing rapidly and had begun to take the initiative to attack, so the redundant soldiers certainly wouldn't wait any longer. After all, they still had a lot of troops and an endless supply line. Whether it was time or chance of victory, they could use this almost unlimited number of troops to fill and exchange. Just like that, the battle began again. The two armies fought fiercely around the circular king city. The government office area was similar to a castle, but it was 10 times larger than an ordinary castle. In terms of area, it was equivalent to a castle-shaped city. Bloody battles were taking place in the sky, on the ground, and even in the water and soil. At this time, it was supposed to be sunrise, but the sky was still dark and chaotic, and the ground had been dyed bright red. It wasn't the rising sun that dyed the ground red, but the blood of the warriors of the monster kingdom and the redundant soldiers that were mixed with the genes of creatures. It wasn't the redundant soldiers that covered the sky that blocked the sun, but in the distance the demonic energy that was emitted by a demon king in the eyes of the people. There were broken limbs and shattered bones. In the ears of the people, there were roars and cries of agony. The murderous intent and terror that seemed to have materialized permeated the air, driving everyone present into a frenzy. This was war, a tragedy that was accompanied by fear and death, pain and absurdity, but it was also a tragedy that people couldn't look away from. Mr. Hanky, the zombies can't hold on any longer. Mr. Hanky, the werewolves are gradually losing their minds, and they are starting to hurt each other. Mr. Hanky, the goblin assault team has suffered great losses. Mr. Hanky, please give the order. Mr. Hanky, the warriors who were covered in blood and came back to report the situation of the battle brought bad news to the king one after another. Indeed, in the previous few hours, the royal army had always had the upper hand. Logically speaking, now that they were prepared to die, they should have had a greater advantage. But, if one put aside the subjective factors and considered the objective situation, one would realize that the development of the battle situation was indeed reasonable. After all, their stamina, magic power, ammunition, and life were all being depleted continuously. On the other hand, although the redundant soldiers had suffered great losses, the strength of their attacks didn't weaken. Their attacks were the same as when the battle first began, or even stronger. The result of this was obvious. Damn bastards! Sandaf, you bastards! When Mr. Hanky, who came from South Park, was forced into a corner, he didn't hold back his vulgarities. He shouted loudly, "I'm going to kill all of you today!" As he cursed, he was ready to fly into the sky and use the infinite sh*t again. He had already used it once before, so he was resting on the city wall and commanding the army at the same time. At this moment, suddenly, a strong light suddenly pierced through the dark sky and tore apart the redundant soldiers' battle line. Chapter 1431. What is that? Is that sunlight? What? Sunlight? Should we inform the vampires to retreat? Idiot! That is not sunlight, that is the light from the spirit seed. No way, how powerful is that energy beam? It is so big. The sudden appearance of the light in the sky attracted the attention of the monsters on the battlefield. At this moment of despair, any strange change was enough to pique their curiosity. Indeed, it was not sunlight, it was a flash. To be precise, it was the king's flash. Before the 3rd chapter, when you saw this skill that appeared out of nowhere, you might have wondered who was the one who released it. But now, I believe you all understand, if you see this kind of skill in the future, it might be Fong Bujue who released it. Friends of the Monster Kingdom, After the flash vaporized hundreds of soldiers, a voice that was loud enough to echo through the sky spoke. I don't care if you recognize me or my friends. What the F***ck? This voice is. Before Brother Jew could finish, Freddy, who was on the wall, recognized the voice. At that moment, the first reaction of the CEO of the Ghoul Power Company was to rush to the king's side and inform him they might be saved. I only want to say one thing. In the sky, Brother Jew continued, we will help you win this war. As he spoke, Xiao Tan, Su Huaishang, Ol Wang, Zun Bro, and the Billy brothers appeared from the sky behind him and joined the battle. Even though there were only 5.5 people and a bird, their speed of killing the monsters was like mowing grass. Especially Xiao Tan and Su Huaishang, compared to the incomplete demigod-level NPCs, the two of them were obviously more powerful. Without the need for an instant kill, Xiao Tan and Goddess Su, who were much more powerful than they were when they were S2, could easily crush these improved soldiers who were not as powerful as the original redundant soldiers without taking any damage. While they were killing their way into the battlefield, many of the soldiers of the Monster Kingdom were discussing among themselves, hey, who are these people? It seems to be very powerful. It's obvious that they are travelers from another world. That's interesting. Travelers from another world actually came to help us? Wait a minute. Isn't that big guy a guard from the detective club? I think I've seen him before. I feel a very powerful mana. There are at least 2 master-level mages in this group. Hey! That purple figure looks familiar. I think I've seen his photo before. Now that you mention it, Feng Bujue. It's Feng Bujue. What? Feng Bujue? That Feng Bujue? Which other Feng Bujue could it be? It's that. Smiling at the heavens, 1,000 armies break, planning the universe and calculating karma? Without feeling anything, without fear, without regard for life or death, not a ghost, not a god, but a mad demon in the crowd, more and more people recognized Brother Jew, and for some reason, some of the monsters said one after another like they were communicating with each other. Eventually, they even finished his poem. It looked like Feng Bujue had done a good job of self-promotion in the main universe over the years, in terms of in-game time. Not only did people in the main regions of the main universe recognize him, even remote places like the Monster Kingdom, including the pirates on the Sea of Chaos, they could recite his name and poem. Feng Bujue? It did not take long for Mr. Hanky, who was on the city wall, to receive Freddy's report. As the king, how could he not have heard of Brother Jew's name? Oh my God! The Feng Bujue who punched the Court of Truth, kicked the Master of Time, explored our kingdom 7 times, played the Phantom Demon Church 3 times, swept through the Devil's Island, barged into the Golden Foundation, scared the Count of Script until he peed himself, and then added, the Feng Bujue who punched the Court of Truth, kicked the Master of Time, explored our kingdom 7 times, played the Phantom Demon Church 3 times, swept through the Devil's Island, barged into the Golden Foundation, scared the Count of Script until he pissed himself, and shocked the King of Dianhai? Freddy nodded. Yes. Wow. Looks like there is still hope for this battle. Mr. Hanky jumped up and down happily, leaving 2 poop marks on the battlements. Can you help me bring him to the command post? I've already asked Sadako to contact him, Freddy answered. While they were talking, in the air, hello, Mr. Billy. A female ghost's face appeared on the glass in front of Billy's eyes, and she greeted him. Billy was quite calm. Sadako? Yes, Sadako replied. Even though I wish to crawl out from the glass to talk to you, it's a bit cramped on your side, so I'll do it from here. That would be best, Billy said. Look down to your left, the middle section of the southern wall, the section behind the Pentachet Dragon Army, Sadako said. I see it, Billy said. What's going on there? The king is there, and he wants to meet you, Sadako replied. Understood, Billy replied. We'll be there right away. Okay, then I'll go first, Sadako said, and her figure disappeared from the surface of the glass. As soon as she left, Billy raised his voice and said to Brother Ju, who was about 10 meters away, "You heard that, right?" "Ah, very clearly," Feng Bujua replied. "I'm waiting for them to contact me. They did need someone to come over and greet them before they could go down. First, there were too many high-intensity data below, and some of the data would increase and decrease during battle. Even with Brother Ju's data perspective, it was difficult to determine the king's exact location. Second, even though Brother Ju had already loudly expressed his position through the deceitful pocket watch, the monsters had not given him a clear response, so he could not approach them rashly. Now, since the other party had sent someone to invite them over, Feng Bujue immediately called his companions and quickly flew towards Mr. Hanky. Along the way, because Mr. Hanky had already given the order, no one stopped them. About 10 seconds later, the group landed in front of Mr. Hanky. "Howdy-ho!" Mr. Hanky raised his small hand and made a drawing a rainbow gesture to greet Brother Ju and the others. "Hello, guests from afar, I'm the current king, Mr. Hanky." The moment they saw him, Xiao Tan and Su Huaishang's expressions became strange, and they both subconsciously took half a step back. "Hello, Mr. Hanky." Feng Bujue was very calm, because he already knew who Mr. Hanky was. "I'm Feng Bujue." After introducing himself, Brother Ju introduced his companions one by one. Actually, Mr. Hanky had heard of a few of them before, but he had never met them in person. After a brief exchange, Mr. Hanky went straight to the point. "Children, based on the current situation, I don't think we have time to beat around the bush. I'm very grateful for your help, but I still want to hear what specific plan you have to change the current situation." Feng Bujue nodded and did not waste time. He replied directly, "Actually, on our way here, we've already completed the first step of the plan. What we need to do now is to announce this matter through you, the mouth of the king, and let the warriors reignite their hope for victory." "Oh? What have you done?" Mr. Hanky asked in an expectant tone. Feng Bujue smiled and replied, "We've already cut off 3/4 of their supply line." Chapter 1432. Feng Bujue lied. This was actually something that was easy to see indeed. He had shut down many of the blast tunnels before coming to the government district. After an experiment, Feng Bujue found that the unparalleled Inferno heat wave cannon did not consume as much energy as he had imagined. Of course, that had something to do with his current physique, which would be explained later, but he definitely did not shut down 3/4 of them. In fact, he himself did not know the total number of blast tunnels, and was merely following the flight path of redundant troops, leading his companions to find and ambush several troop deployment points closer to the government district. Taking a step back, things like the blast tunnels could be reactivated as long as they took some time to prepare. Therefore, the concept of cutting off the troop line did not exist in the first place. At most, it was reducing the speed of the enemy's troop movement for a certain period of time. Whatever the case may be, Feng Bujue's lie still played its intended role. After Mr. Hanji announced the news, the Royal Army's soldiers were indeed rekindled with hope, and the rhythm of the battle changed as well. The warriors who had almost lost their minds regained their rationality, while those who were already on the losing end calmed down and retreated for the time being. Some of the soldiers who were already exhausted rejoined the battle after some rest. The enemy's numbers will be reduced, or even wiped out, as long as we hold on a little longer. The offensive will weaken. Such thoughts spread rapidly within the army, becoming the light of hope in a hopeless situation. Just as the morale of facing death with equanimity was waning, the power of hope joined in at the right time, reinvigorating the Royal Army's morale. Still, in the end, it was just a stopgap measure, a means to buy time. To solve the problem from the root, they still had to rely on "I need weapons of mass destruction." Fong Bujue did not beat around the bush, stating his request directly to Mr. Hanji. Son, I am a weapon of mass destruction, Mr. Hanji said honestly. Mr. Hanji was also telling the truth. In fact, many of our warriors are as strong as I am. But as you can see, as long as the number of the enemy reaches a certain level, and there are more troops coming in, our level of damage can only have a limited effect. That's why I need weapons of mass destruction on a larger scale. Brother Ju continued, what I want is a power that is 10 times, or even 100 times stronger than yours. The kind of power that you will take the initiative to seal, the kind that may destroy your own power if you are not careful, the kind that you feel is more dangerous than an army. Oh my God! Mr. Hanji sighed. Son, if I had that kind of thing, I would have used it a long time ago. What reason do I have to hide it when the whole country is about to be slaughtered? Actually, Freddy stuttered at this moment. From the looks of it, it was obvious that he knew something, but he couldn't say it out loud. What? Mr. Hanji also looked at him in confusion. If you have something to say, say it. Your Majesty, there's something you don't know, Freddy said. That kind of thing actually exists. Mr. Hanji was also stunned. Why didn't I know? We usually don't tell the king about this. Freddy shrugged. You know. After all, the king will change sooner or later, but the elders and ancestors of the kingdom won't. That sounds so king reasonable, Mr. Hanji said. Mr. Hanky continued, then what is the secret that even the king is not allowed to know? The well of reincarnation. Before Freddy could answer, the Count of Script answered first. As expected of the Count of Script. Freddy, who had planned to reveal this, naturally had no reason to deny it. You even know about this, so? I don't even know about something that outsiders know? Mr. Hanji seemed a bit depressed. Oh *CK, that's too good. As he cursed, he took out a cigarette from behind, and lit it up. Even though the Count of Script was in a difficult situation, it was important to remember, in terms of setting, he was the quasi-god who represented knowledge in the new era. He knew almost everything about the main universe. The well of reincarnation is the cornerstone of the monster kingdom's existence. The Count of Script did not have time to bicker with Mr. Hanji, so he went straight to the point. All the creatures that live on this land, no matter how long they live, at the moment their lives end, they will enter the well of reincarnation. The life source of the creatures that are born here actually comes from that well. It is because of the existence of the well of reincarnation that the residents of the monster kingdom will not enter the reincarnation of other life forms in the main universe. For example, they will die and become wandering souls in the kingdom of the dead. And the power of the well of reincarnation is self-explanatory. Hey, you could have told me this on the way here. Fong Bujue could not help but grumble. On the way here, you didn't even mention anything about a weapon of mass destruction, the Count of Script replied. The Count of Script replied, seeing how confident you are, I thought you had some way to deal with it. He paused for a moment. Besides, all I know is the information on the settings. I read it all in ancient scrolls. I don't know how to obtain the power of the well of reincarnation and how to use it. Brother Ju heard that and then turned to Freddy. Do you know about disfigured face? I have a name, okay? Freddy said. What kind of name is disfigured face? Stop wasting time. Do you know about child abuse pervert? Fong Bujue could keep changing his nickname to play with Freddy for the whole day. I know about the same as the Count of Script, but it might not be as detailed as the information he got from the scrolls, Freddy said. After all, we only know about this through word of mouth, sigh. What's the point of having a piece of trash like you who can only wipe his ass with his left hand? Brother Ju shook his head. Don't go too far. I can take off my gauntlet, Freddy said as if he was really going to take it off. Fine, I'll think of something myself. Feng Bujue ignored him and turned to look in another direction. There's a saying, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'll go in first and then we'll play it by ear. Hey, wait. Freddy saw Brother Ju's action and exclaimed, How do you know the Well of Reincarnation is underground at the center of the royal city? Feng Bujue cut him off and said, It's simple. When I looked down from the sky, the strongest energy reaction was not outside the city but inside the city, deep underground. It's because I saw this. That's why I asked if you guys have any hidden trump cards. Chapter 1433. Opening the seal of the Well of Reincarnation was supposed to be a very troublesome matter. The secret space hidden under the royal city required the presence of at least 7 ancestor-level monsters, or elders of the monster kingdom. The 7 people had to perform a ritual together before it could be opened. Fortunately, due to the current situation the kingdom was experiencing, the high-level monster bosses had basically all gathered together. Not to mention 7 elders, even 17 of them could be gathered. Plus, the situation was critical and time was pressing. There would be no opposing voices to stop Brother Ju from jumping into the well. Therefore, in just 10 minutes, Feng Bujue and the others had arrived at the entrance of the Well of Reincarnation. Brother Zun will be here to meet me. The rest of you should go outside and defend the city wall. Before he left, Feng Bujue naturally had to explain. If the city has been taken down before I return and everyone is dead, then there will be no point for me to come here. Brother Ju, can you? Xiao Tan looked a little worried. There are so many elders, but none of them know what's going on under the well. I think it's a bit risky for you to go. How about I go in with you? Su Huaishang suggested. If there are 2 of us, there's still room to maneuver if something unexpected happens. There's no need for that. Feng Bujue replied. Even if you want to find someone to go with you, Xiao Tan is more suitable than you in terms of the role's ability. With your combat power, it's a waste not to go out and kill monsters. Then Xiao Tan was just about to say something. Brother Ju interrupted him again. But I don't want you to come with me, because if I fail, your power of time and black flame will be the only remaining means to fight against the war demon. Hey, don't suddenly tell me to go and kill the strongest boss in the universe. Just thinking about it makes me feel pressured. Xiao Tan complained sincerely. In fact, Xiao Tan was very strong, but he was still a hair's breadth away from those supermasters. This hair's breadth was that he did not have the will to fight. Due to his gentle and kind nature, he had a certain resistance to the act of killing. Unlike those who could enjoy fighting, Xiao Tan was very passive in this regard. Therefore, even though his potential and raw power were fully qualified to be among the top masters in Thriller Paradise, because he did not have the desire to pursue fighting and become stronger, he basically would not have the idea of fighting the war demon alone and try to kill it. Haha, I'm just saying. Feng Bujue knew Xiao Tan very well. He did not want the latter to shoulder the burden that he did not want to shoulder, so he always used that casual attitude to state the worst possibility. While building up the psychological barrier for his friend, he was prepared to take on the harshest challenge. Don't worry, I will return with the power I need. But before that, you will have to work hard. Humph. Even without you telling us, we will work hard. Hearing that, Dianhai King scoffed. You just casually tossed us a burden that is as big as a mountain to carry. Ha! That is indeed your usual way of doing things. Billy laughed. Bill also made a timely expression. Okay. I will give it my all as well. Xiao Tan looked like he was greatly encouraged. He was indeed the most naive and gullible since you said that. I also promise that I will hold on until you return, Su Huaishang said seriously. I believe that with everyone's power, the monster kingdom, This is the last line of defense of the main universe. It will not be destroyed today. You are all quite confident. At this time, only the Count of Script did not join the surging atmosphere. Are you done? Go and defend. And you. Jump. While you are talking, we might have lost another 100 people. After Zun Gu poured a bucket of cold water on them, everyone dispersed. Wang Tanji, Su Huaishang, the Billy brothers, and Dian Hai King left the underground space and returned to the city wall to start the battle. And Feng Bujue, after staring at the mouth of the giant well that was glowing with a greenish-white light and was as deep as the abyss, he opened his arms and made a dashing leap of faith as he jumped into the well. The feeling of falling was strange. The feeling of wind brushing past his face, the feeling of gravity pulling on his body, the feeling of water or some other substance covering his body, there was none of that. It was as if all the sense of time and space had disappeared in that moment. At the same time, there were endless whispers, flashbacks, and pure emotions and thoughts. They poured into Brother Ju's mind. This feeling was like a carousel before death, but it was not his own carousel, it was the carousel of other people and even non-human creatures. It was only a few seconds, but this experience was enough to drive people crazy. But Feng Bujue felt good. Perhaps it was because his soul was unique, or perhaps the system was protecting him from a mental breakdown, or perhaps he was a madman. In this well, Feng Bujue felt like a fish in water, like he was using his soul to do a good bungee jump. When he gradually indulged in this pleasure, and was about to lose himself, this strange feeling suddenly disappeared. When he recovered, he was standing in a giant space. There seemed to be an endless border around him, and he was surrounded by unknown substances that looked like spirits and glowed softly. Interesting. Feng Bujue, who had regained his consciousness, looked up. Above his head, it looked like an inverted abyss. Which world is inside the well, and which world is outside the well? Just as he was talking to himself, suddenly, an extremely penetrating male voice rang out, "What does it matter where you are, where you are? You only need to know where you are going in the future, and that is enough. May I ask?" Feng Bujue followed the voice and asked, "Who are you?" When he finished speaking, the other person's figure appeared. He saw a person, holding a long halberd, walking slowly towards him. He was tall and handsome, and his long hair fluttered in the wind. Among his black hair, there were a few strands of silver at his temples. Under his cloak, he wore a pitch-black armor. The wind stains, asking the cold road, "Who drinks with me? Who dares to stand in the way?" The halberd returns, but the man does not return. Brother Ju did not expect that the reply he got was a poem. Yen Gui Ren? Feng Bujue did not expect to meet someone who should belong to the Thunderbolt world here. Feng Bujue. Yen Gui Ren also recognized Brother Ju. "I have been waiting here for a long time." "Oh!" Brother Ju laughed. "You know me? And you knew I was coming?" Yen Gui Ren did not answer his question, but continued coldly, "I have something to say." As he spoke, he swung the long halberd on his shoulder and got into a fighting stance. "Let's talk after the fight." Chapter 1434. On the battlefield, the battle had reached its climax. As expected, Feng Bujue's lie that they had cut off 3/4 of the enemy's troops was gradually losing its effect. Although his words had indeed helped the royal army regain their morale for a period of time, in the face of the pressure of reality, it was difficult to maintain such mental strength for a long time. Of course, most of the soldiers of the royal army were already mentally prepared for this. They were not fools. From the very beginning, they did not completely believe Feng Bujue's words. Everyone knew that if the Redundancy Legion could open up the first rumble tunnel, they could naturally open up the second, third, and nth batches. Even if Feng Bujue was telling the truth, the final result would not change. because the enemy's troops would continue to arrive sooner or later. To put it bluntly, the soldiers only treated Feng Bujue's words as a placebo, just like how an incurable person would use morphine to relieve their pain. They accepted it, and obtained a temporary peace of mind. The enemy in the west has reached the city walls. Pumpkinhead's squad has been completely annihilated. Vampire and Bigfoot's troops are about to collapse. The sweepers have injured their ancestor. Black Dragon Ancestor has been severely injured and is on the verge of death. He has transformed into his human form and is being sent to the magic emergency room. The self-destructing assault team formed by the goblins has completed their mission. One bad news after another was relayed to the command post, but the king was not there at all. Mr. Hankey, who had rested for a while, had returned to the battlefield, and was almost single-handedly holding off the enemy in the south. Indeed, there was no limit to his ability to control feces, but there was a limit to his stamina, and his ultimate skills had cooldowns. Under the attack of thousands of Redundancy Legion and 3 sweepers, even someone as strong as Mr. Hankey could only bitterly hold on. Feng Bujue's companions had also entered the battle, and were scattered all over the place, fighting against the Redundancy Legion. In the sky to the east, Dianhai King had transformed into the form of an ancient guardian demon. It was like a giant bronze bell jar, combining physical and magical abilities to block the enemy's attacks. In terms of combat power, among the few NPCs that Feng Bujue had met, Old Wang was the only one who had not lost any power in the war. Unfortunately, his power was incomplete. Ever since he left the door to the void, Dianhai King had been in a recovery period. His appearance represented the extent of his recovery. During S2, he still looked like a child. Now, he looked like a teenager. If he wanted to recover to his prime state in the previous era, he would have to wait until he looked like a middle-aged man. To put it simply, Dianli King's transformation was actually overdrafting his strength. However, given the situation, he had no other choice. Looking to the north of the city wall, Billy Brothers and Xiao Tan were fighting there. To be honest, Billy Brothers could only play a limited role in this battle because they could only rely on Bill's close-range combat ability to kill the enemy. Even though Bill's combat power was good, and he could take down one enemy with just a few punches and kicks, in this large-scale battle where the enemy outnumbered them, his killing speed was undoubtedly a drop in the bucket. On the other hand, Billy Brothers, who was good at illusion and spirit, was helpless against the Redundancy Legion that had no self-awareness. If he still had his body, he could still use his psychokinesis to participate in the battle. However, the war demon had destroyed this possibility 2 years ago. As for Xiao Tan, his killing speed was much faster than Bill's. After some exploration, Xiao Tan had figured out the various ways to kill the Redundancy Legion with one hit. His attack was a typical assassin attack. He used the smallest price, the fastest speed, and the highest efficiency to kill the enemy instantly. But, even so, relatively speaking, his efficiency was still very low. In the face of the sea of Redundancy Legion that covered the sky like a dark cloud, this one-by-one method was definitely not as good as AoE. This was obvious. For example, if Mr. Hankey sent out a wave of feces and hit more than 20 enemies, 5 of them died and a dozen were injured. Even if those who were injured were ignored, he would still be able to kill 5 enemies in 2 seconds. On the other hand, Xiao Tan and Bill's killing method was to move, attack, stop, look for the next target, move again, attack again. Not to mention that the enemies were not live target. No matter how weak they would still have some reaction. Even if the enemies were a group of live targets, it would be good enough to maintain the speed of killing one in 4 seconds. In other words, using the one-by-one method, it would take about 20 seconds to kill 5 monsters. This was 10 times worse than Mr. Hankey's efficiency. In fact, this was the biggest problem that the Monster Kingdom was facing in this battle. In terms of individual strength, The royal army was definitely much stronger than the redundancy legion. In terms of 1 by 1, as long as they did not go up against the sweepers, any of the royal army's warriors could win in a row. But how long could this winning streak last? 10 rounds was fine, but what about 100? 1,000? What if they had to face multiple redundancy legions at the same time? This question was like, how long could 1,000 martial arts masters last against a million-strong army of the imperial court? War was not a duel. In a large-scale battle, yoi attacks were much more important than the ability to fight alone. Of course, yoi skills would definitely consume a lot of energy. If they could be used without limit, Mr. Hanky could single-handedly take on all the minions. The battle had lasted from dawn until now. The royal army's groups such as the dragons, who relied on their body size and ability to spew magic, mages, who used Aoi magic, voidlings, a technological race that used plasma weapons, and other groups were basically at the end of their rope. Their stamina, mana, and energy, after such a long time, they were mostly used up. At this moment, when another batch of redundancy legions appeared from the horizon, despair finally descended once more. After holding on for so long, when their physical exhaustion had reached its limit, they once again saw a large batch of redundancy legions reinforcements. This feeling was the last straw that broke the psychological barrier of the warriors. They began to fear, not fear of dying, but fear of living in this eternal night that was like purgatory. Don't give up. However, amidst the sounds of despair, there was still a voice that said firmly, as long as we can hold on until Feng Bujue returns, we can win. As the voice trailed off, Su Huaishang's figure had already appeared on the western wall. Facing the line of defense that was about to collapse, she also showed her trump card, the Soul Advent. Chapter 1435. On the other hand, inside the well of reincarnation, in the realm of rebirth, all sounds returned to silence. The desire to fight was like the wind. Yen Guiran only needed to get into his stance, and his long hair and cloak fluttered in the wind. Feng Bujue, on the other hand, took out a wrench and a small knife. He held 2 pitifully short weapons and stood where he was. He did not get into any stance. He only bent his legs slightly, relaxed his body, and waited. The reason he chose to attack after the enemy was because Feng Bujue did not know how powerful Yen Guiran was. In the pure energy environment of the Well of Reincarnation, Brother Ju's data perspective was seriously affected, so he could only confirm his opponent's power during the fight. The standoff did not last long. After a short moment of silence, it was time for the fight to the death. Hearing Yen Guiran's shout, he stepped forward and raised his long halberd, using the swallow shuttling to attack. This first move was extremely dangerous, because at that moment, Feng Bujue did not have the data provided by the data perspective, and his zero-time difference calculation had not collected any data. He did not have any concept of Yen Guiran's speed, power, and technique. TSK. There was a loud noise and sparks flew. At the last moment, Feng Bujue leaned back and used the wrench to block the halberd, slightly changing the trajectory of the halberd. The sharp blade slid between his cheek and shoulder, slightly scraping his skin. Faster than me? This thought flashed across Brother Ju's mind. And much faster? This was a situation that Feng Bujue had never encountered before. Even though there were some players who could beat Feng Bujue in terms of speed, in the main universe, Brother Ju had not met anyone who could compete with him in terms of speed for a long time. Even among the fighting NPCs, only a certain fist master from the short-hair Divine Fist could compete with him. The time officers and jurors that appeared between S1 and S2 were still one level below him. Furthermore, Feng Bujue now had the power of Kongtong Seal and Tiangang Dishabox, so he should be faster and stronger than before. No wonder he is a character from the world of lightning. Feng Bujue soon calmed down. He set a baseline for his opponent's speed and power in his mind, and his zero-lag calculation started to work. In terms of a one-on-one fight, even if I have the upper hand in terms of raw power, it is hard to tell who will win. Furthermore, I appear to be at a disadvantage. All these thoughts flashed through his mind in a split second. Before he could readjust his body, Yen Guiran had already followed up with another attack in less than a second. The halberd that brushed past Brother Ju's shoulder was pushed down by Yen Guiran with a twist of his wrist. The power of a lion came crashing down. Feng Bujue was pushed to the ground with his face up by the force of the halberd. Instantly, the ground cracked and exploded. Strength! The pain from his body did not stop Feng Bujue from thinking. On the contrary, it made him more alert. Stronger than me, Screech. At this time, Yen Guiran had already gathered his strength to push down the halberd, as if he wanted to crush Brother Ju's body. But there is a problem. While Feng Bujue was thinking, he had already slid his body to the side and cleverly slipped out of his opponent's grasp. Seeing this, Yen Guiran's reaction did not slow down at all. He flicked the tip of his halberd and swept it out, following the direction that Feng Bujue was rolling towards, sending out a powerful chi wave. "You dare to use a normal halberd to fight me?" Brother Ju said as he flipped and spun to avoid this wave of attacks that were close to the ground. His reply to Feng Bujue was a low growl and a second attack, a swallow's spin. In a split second, Yen Guiran swung his halberd in a circle and chased after him. "Looks like before the fight is over, he does not intend to talk to me," Feng Bujue muttered to himself. Then, he gave up on the idea of using words to confuse and test his opponent. No choice. I can only meet force with force. At that moment, a fishy and sweet smell filled the air. At the same time, Feng Bujue's body turned into a blurry red shadow and disappeared from Yen Guiran's sight. Name: Body Enhancement Spell of Spiritual Mastery, Skill Card Type, Active, Permanent Skill Type, Spiritual or Effect. After activation, the player's strength and speed will be increased proportionally. The greater the increase, the greater the burden on the player. Consumption? Learning Requirement: Body Enhancement Spell of Spiritual Mastery, Modified Remark. This was originally the basic spell of the 7 chapters of the Phantom Valley sect. It was later modified by the 250th generation of the Phantom Valley sect to be more powerful. However, the burden on the user is also more severe. Later on, it was modified by a candidate with the surname Feng. The effect is even more extreme. Remember to use it with caution. The feeling of the container of the soul being compressed and burned. The feeling of the heart being overloaded like an overloaded water pump. After Feng Bujue activated the skill, he was finally able to extricate himself from his opponent's relentless attack. If it was not for the fact that my body has been greatly strengthened, this skill would most likely remain in the theoretical stage. No. Even now, I have to end this as soon as possible. As he thought of this, his body flashed and reappeared behind Yen Guiran. Under the effect of a body enhancement spell of spiritual mastery, Feng Bujue's speed temporarily reached a level that even he himself found difficult to control and react to. Therefore, he had absolute confidence that he would not be able to dodge this attack. Dang! After a short while, the sound of metal clashing announced the result of the attack. Yes, Yen Guiran could not dodge this attack. Therefore, he did not dodge it. Instead, he blocked it. It must be admitted that Feng Bujue's speed was unparalleled. Yen Guiran did not even have time to turn around, let alone dodge it. However, his battle instincts were unbelievably strong. At the last moment, Yen Guiran swung the iron halberd that was using whirling swallow. The hard iron halberd in his hand bent flexibly like a whip and blocked off Feng Bujue's attack with an arc that was 50% neutralizing and 50% blocking. Is that enough? After retracting his attack, Feng Bujue did not attack again. Instead, he immediately deactivated his skill and asked, "Enough." Yen Guiran also retracted his halberd and turned around, restraining his battle intent. Both of them knew that their opponent had more than one trick up his sleeve. Yen Guiran did not use his divine weapon, nor did he use his full strength. Feng Bujue only used one hand to attack from behind. Yen Guiran did not use the weapon in his other hand. However, both of them could feel from each other's actions that there was only battle intent and no killing intent. Therefore, there was no need to fight to the death. Then, after pausing for 2 seconds, Feng Bujue said, "You should know why I am here, right?" "Yes." Yen Guiran replied, "I also know that you don't have much time, so I will make it short." Chapter 1436. Blades flashed and blood rained down. Below the royal city, mountains of corpses were piled high. After activating Soul Advent, Su Huaishang was like a demon that soared through the sky. Wherever she went, death spread like a gale. Even though Su Huaishang was also fighting with cold weapons, her killing speed was not something that Xiao Tan or Bill could compare to. As a master of energy control, Su Huaishang could infuse her weapon with blade aura, and this blade aura could be adjusted according to her will. For example, when she wanted to kill off a small group of soldiers, she could use her energy to increase the range of her weapon. This way, with one horizontal slash, she could kill an entire row of enemies. When she ran into sweepers, she could use her energy to increase the power of her attack, and with overwhelming force, she could kill them quickly. Right now, Su Huaishang, who was in the Soul Advent state, could use far more energy than she could in her normal state. She had almost single-handedly turned the tide of the battle around. On the other hand, since earlier, Xiao Tan and the Billy brothers had given up on the inefficient method of clearing out the enemy troop. Instead, they started to target the sweepers. Obviously, this was the most logical strategy. Using their abilities to clear out the enemy troops was not a good idea, but it was perfect for dealing with sweepers. As the number of sweepers decreased, many of the warriors in the royal army who were good at AoE were able to use their abilities more safely and more easily. This way, they could increase the efficiency of clearing out the enemy troop. To put it simply, with the efforts of the two players and the NPCs, this was the first time that the speed at which we killed the enemy troops was faster than the speed at which the enemy troops were replenishing their forces. After this phenomenon persisted for a period of time, naturally, the pressure on the royal army's various battle fronts lessened. They finally began to truly feel that the number of enemies was decreasing. Citizens of the Monster Kingdom, it is time for us to strike back. Mr. Hanji saw the opportunity and shouted in the middle of the battlefield. He knew that this was the last shout and also the last chance. If this wave of attack could kill off 70 to 80% of the enemy troops on the battlefield, then perhaps they could buy themselves a chance to breathe and buy more time for Feng Bujue. Fight it out with them. Break their bones. Kill them all. Avenge our fallen comrades. Beastmen will never be slaves. Roar for the Monster Kingdom. For a moment, the tens of thousands of wounded and exhausted fiendish demons and ghosts once again squeezed out the remaining strength in their bodies and launched another round of counterattacks. Even though this was not the strongest wave of attacks so far, it was still the most ferocious. Some of the monsters had already lost part of their limbs in the previous battle, but they still charged towards the enemy without hesitation. They wanted to use their mouths to bite a few of them to death as bait. In the face of such determination and such an offensive, the redundant army showed signs of retreat for the first time. The remaining sweepers had already decided to order their troops to retreat through the tactical control system. They would wait until the number of redundant troops on the front lines had reached a certain level before they could make a comeback. If they really retreated at this moment, in a sense, it was equivalent to letting victory slip through their fingers. This was because by the time they regrouped, the kingdom's army would have had a certain amount of rest. Besides, by that time, Feng Bujue would have returned. The monster kingdom did not expect to rely on their own military strength to kill the redundant troop. Their original goal was to buy time. Only with time, they would have the capital to look forward to the last hope. However, things did not go so smoothly. Just as the tide of the battle was about to turn, a black demonic figure appeared on the horizon. At that moment, the battle around the king's city suddenly stopped. The redundant troops, who were already retreating, withdrew from the city walls, and the soldiers of the king's army did not continue to pursue them. Everyone's attention was involuntarily focused on the demonic figure. No one could take their eyes off of it because of its monstrous demonic aura. Already here, Dianli King stared at the war demon from the sky and thought to himself, "Looks like this is the end." Old Wang, who was born in the previous era, knew the war demon's strength the best. In this era, he had also imagined that the war demon would have some changes, but, after seeing the war demon in action at the detective club, Old Wang once again confirmed that, after so many years of being sealed, the war demon's combat strength had not decreased. It could be said that Dianli King was more desperate than anyone else present at the moment. At the same time, Su Huaishang's soul advent state had reached its limit and was removed by her. Goddess Su's soul advent state was similar to Ruoyu's extreme efficiency state. It was very taxing on the mind, and she could not use it endlessly. Phew! Looking at the approaching war demon, Su Huaishang adjusted her breathing as she muttered, "This thing, is there really someone who can slow it down?" Her question was immediately answered. In the blink of an eye, while everyone was still in a daze due to fear and confusion, a figure had already rushed towards the war demon in the distance. It was none other than Wang Tongji. "What is this kid doing?" Freddy, who had already arrived at the front line, could not help but exclaim. "Howdy ho!" Mr. Hanji was also shocked. Of course, it was not just them. Everyone, including the sweepers, could not understand Xiao Tan's actions. From all angles it seemed like he was going to die. Ant. The war demon's thoughts were the same as everyone else's. Looking at Xiao Tan, who was rushing towards him, he only snorted disdainfully and continued to move forward as if nothing had happened. From his point of view, no matter what kind of attack Xiao Tan launched, it would all be futile. The war demon of today was no longer the war demon who had just come out of the door to the void, nor was he the eyeless war demon, nor was he the war demon who was sealed away. The war demon in front of him had grown to a state that was even stronger than he was at his peak in the last era. To him, this was an unprecedented state. The current him could use his body's density to resist unbelievably high physical damage. He could use the mana that leaked out unconsciously to evaporate most of the effects of energy on his body. Even if he just stood there and let his opponent attack him, there were only a handful of existences in the main universe that could kill him. No one knew what kind of method Xiao Tan could use to fight the war demon, except for Xiao Tan himself. Chapter 1437. Cover me! That was the last thing Xiao Tan shouted before he leaped into the air. When he shouted this sentence, no one knew what he wanted to do. Of course, compared to this, everyone was thinking more about a problem: how to cover a person who was about to be killed instantly. But about 10 seconds later, everyone, including War Demon, would understand the meaning of his sentence and would shout F***ck in their hearts. Annoying bug. Looking at the figure leaping toward him, War Demon spat nonchalantly and made a gesture like he was chasing away mosquitoes. According to his experience, to kill a traveler from another world, such a gesture was enough. In an instant, a black, pure magic energy burst out from the back of his hand. It was like a wave of flames that blasted out an irregular energy impact in midair. The next second, Xiao Tan's figure was completely covered by the magic energy. He was probably obliterated to the point that there was nothing left. But, In less than a second, War Demon noticed it. An afterimage? Yes, the one in midair was just an afterimage left behind by Shao Tan using. The fragrant flowers are gone. It could only last for 3 seconds. Even though it was only a D-rank fighting mastery skill, it was still useful. Relying on the time bought by the afterimage, Shao Tan's real body successfully approached War Demon and activated a skill. To explain what this skill was, there was another item. Banana Mulberry's Ma Fei Doll. Name: Banana Mulberry's Ma Fei Doll. A type: Other or Quality. Broken special effect. The holder can use the special skill, 9 Heavens Snow Dance. This skill is not affected by the skill bar's upper limit. Prerequisite: male, bound after pickup, can be taken out of the scenario. Yes, remark. The doll that Banana Mulberry treats as a good friend. Every time he is scolded by Tseng Liangjun, Banana Mulberry will hug Ma Fei tightly to seek spiritual comfort. After a long time, I believe the audience has long forgotten the origin and effect of this item, so I will explain it again. This Banana Mulberry's Ma Fei doll appeared in the story of Chapter 33, The Forced Return of the Detective. It was a reward obtained by Shao Tan after he completed a side mission alone. In other words, this was an item brought back from the world of Japan and Japan. All this time, Shao Tan had not used the skill that came with this thing. He had tried it out a few times, because it was really a pain in the ass move. Special skill: 9 Heavens Snow Dance. Effect: suppresses the target to kneel, rendering them unable to do anything. Cooldown time: 5 hours. Requires continuous guidance. Can only be used on humanoid, NPCs or monsters with normal vision. Remark: an amazing skill that is superior to 2 dragons playing with chrysanthemum picking hands, an eye-piercing skill. It was taught by the god of haiku to Matsuo Banana, who was temporarily affected by F***CK can't stop mushroom. The only drawback to this skill is that if the user is disturbed by external forces during the casting process, the skill will be stopped. Based on the description, one might think that this skill was very normal, but in reality, similar to the naughty child's lower whip kick from the world of Japan and Japan, 9 Heavens Snow Dance was also a causality skill. There were 4 main advantages to this skill. First, it did not take up any skill slot. Second, there was no consumption. Third, as long as the skill hit, there was a 100% success rate. Fourth, there was no upper limit to the duration. Among the 4 points, the most important one was the unlimited duration. In the description of the skill, there was no time limit for the continuous channeling action. In other words, as long as the caster did not want to stop and no one interrupted him, he could continue channeling the skill. Even if the skill was already on cooldown after 5 hours, the cooldown of the skill started from the moment the skill was cast. It would not matter. This was the idea that Shao Tan came up with. Do-Mo didn't expect that his casual attack was actually so important. Do-Mo's fearless attitude, his carelessness, and his underestimation of his opponent made him miss the only chance to stop his opponent's attack before he got close to him. In the blink of an eye, Shao Tan had already activated the special skill that came with this item. He pressed on War Demon's face with one hand, and then he stood upside down on War Demon's head. After this posture was stable, Shao Tan's other hand began to stroke his hair and sprinkle dandruff. Of course, these were not real dandruff, but the effect created by the skill. Even if the caster was bald when he used this skill, there would still be endless white dandruff-like substances falling slowly like snowflakes. Wjat. When he was hit, War Demon showed an expression of disbelief, and this expression quickly froze on his face. Under the effect of the skill, Do-Mo involuntarily spread his legs and knelt on the ground. His arms spread out and drooped weakly to both sides. His eyes automatically stared upwards and through the gaps between the fingers of the palm that was pressing on his face. He looked at the man-made snow scene. He could neither look away nor close his eyes. The most frightening thing was that no matter how hard he tried, he could not move his body. He could not even open his mouth to speak. All of his senses were normal, and he could feel that his strength was not affected. However, he could not move or use any other means like telekinesis or astral projection to change the situation. Quick! Quick, cover him! After a moment, the first person to react was Billy. This guy was indeed smart. After watching for a while, he understood what was going on. So, he quickly used his ability to transmit his voice to the ears of every soldier on the battlefield. When they heard this, Su Huaishang, Dianli King, and many other soldiers of the royal army reacted in unison almost instantly. They surrounded War Demon. They did not know what Xiao Tan did, but no matter what he did, there was no doubt it worked. On the other hand, the redundancy army did not do anything in the face of this sudden series of changes. Due to the low intelligence of these guys, they could not analyze complex problems. Under the premise that the sweepers were present, they had to act according to the tactical control system that the sweepers were equipped with. At this time, the tactical control system's feedback showed that War Demon's combat strength had not decreased. Even if he was surrounded, his death rate did not change. It was infinitely close to zero. Therefore, the result of the sweeper's calculation was, there was no need to help War Demon. Since the royal army did not pursue them, they should follow the original plan and wait for the reinforcements to arrive before launching the next round of attack. Just like that, War Demon, in an almost comical state, was controlled by Xiao Tan alone. The situation of the battle had entered a delicate stalemate. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.